Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, hello, and welcome everybody. This is UKITT Week 1 UK and Ireland team tournament. We are very precise about our pronunciation. My name is Adam Valkis Walker. I'm joined by Whammy for our inaugural week of some games. We'll be here for your first 3 games for the evening, and we've got 6 games wonderfully set up for you all. How are you doing, Whammy?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Really excited to be here. I've seen a lot of the matches going on in the live links. I've been watching some of them, trying not to spoil the ones for this week for the stream. Didn't want to, fake any of it. But yeah, I'm excited to see what we've got. From what I can see, we've got Rory and Pokey replays in our first set in a Regulation I showdown match. Which is looking to be really fun. Do we want to go over the players, see what they've brought for this first game?
Yeah, let's have a quick look at these then. So first up, we've got Rory's team for the Regulation I match. It looks like a Koraidon and Kali Shadow set of team, which at first glance, you're like, cool, fairly standard stuff. Then there's a Mousehold here, and there's Aquajet on the Walking Wake, the dinosaur. And speaking of dinosaurs, their favourite dinosaur is the Ankylosaurus, which I'd like to say I know what one looks like, but this might be a thing I'm going to have to Google later.
So an Ankylosaurus, if anyone is interested, is actually a fairly short dinosaur with a hammer-like tail to it. In fact, it was also one of the first dinosaurs ever discovered. Interesting fact, because for some reason we have dinosaur facts on here. But yeah, one of the things on this team that really stands out to me is I love the addition of the Feint here. Having experimented with Caloric Shadow Rider in the earlier, in like the Regulation G format, I found the Wide Guard obviously being a very prevalent thing that obviously the Feint blocks, which is quite an interesting tech to see on a mouse that obviously helps the Friend Guard.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of options on here, and the most important thing is there are 2 Pokemon that can click Protect, and we'll see how that shapes up for them defensively going into the rest of the game, where they'll be staring down Poker Replay, and if we have a quick look at their team, we'll be able to see what tools they have to protect themselves against this. We have Kali Shadow and Zamazenta. Zamazenta carrying that Wide Guard, so that Feint could be very powerful here.
Yeah, it's going to be really big, especially when you also look at the fact that the Mousehold and the Galarian Weezing on Rory's team have both taunt as well. So if you're in a situation where you haven't been able to get off that taunt very reliably, you can just go for the Feint. Otherwise, you can just shut it down. And now that's a sitting dog.
Yeah, dog. I think it's a dog. Shield? Sitting dog. Sitting dog sounds better.
Yeah. Regardless, it's a good dog. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl.
Is good dog.
Is a good dog.
Main thing though for Poker Replay, obviously as they mentioned themselves, they've been using Calyrex especially Caloric Shadow Rider, in every format that's been available since 2022, which is a long time to be using this Pokemon. They'll be very familiar with the tools that it has available to it and all the tools it has available to be stopped by as well. So hopefully we'll be able to get a little bit of a masterclass in some Kali Shadow, hopefully.
Oh, absolutely. The amount of time you can spend in years racking up that experience means you end up having those damage calc numbers going right into a new regulation like Reg I, already stored in your brain from a long time. So there's very little that'll probably be surprising. And I think will be interesting to see if any of the surprise tech into him will end up being able to foil his plans.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely really interesting to see. As a quick rundown on the remaining games we've got coming up for you. So keep seated. There will be another Regulation I game, but before that, there will also be a little bit of a wildcard match and some Sword and Shield to look forward to. But before any of that, I believe we have the Twin Leaf Typhlosions and the Apple and Bottom Genes taking each other on, ready for game 1. We have Rory leading the Koraidon and the Walking Wake, putting them down on the field, getting that sun set up, and the Photosynthesis boost will be clocking through. We will see soon enough if that is going to be speed or special attack. It is going to be speed while carrying the Assault Vest, make it nice, bulky, nice and fast. Zamazenta's defense boost clicks in, and it is Kali Shadow. We have 4 big legendary Pokemon, and 3 of those are restricted taking the field.
This is a hell of a start because the Walking Wake with this photosynthesis boost ends up actually outspeeding the Calyrex here, meaning the Calyrex no longer being fastest ends up being very vulnerable to the Walking Wake with potentially, depending on how the Calyrex Shadowride is built, could end up being in a very dangerous spot already from the get-go. And the Koraidon threatening the Zamazenta with both a collision. Is that collision course? Yeah, collision course or Flare Blitz does mean that there's a very strong start for Rory.
Absolutely. The Calyrex is immediately leaving the battlefield, wanting to keep itself nice and safe. It is scared. We get Terrestrialization coming out from both Pokemon hitting the field. Scald coming out, putting some reasonable damage into Raging Bolt. Not Scald, Hydro Steam even. Showdown animations catching me out there. Body Press returning the favor, pumping lots of damage into that Walking Wake, showing that while it's equipped that Assault Vest, it is still a fairly fragile mon. Flame Charge does come out and boost the speed for this Koraidon, though, meaning it will be staged very powerfully should anything else hit the field in a little while.
Yeah, so this is actually a really important turn already, just having that speed boost on the Koraidon, meaning that even if the Walking Wake is taken out by, say, a Thunderclap, potentially by Raging Bolt, assuming that will be enough, given it's not actually super effective, despite the water typing, it is also a dragon, making it actually neutral. Photosynthesis boost may end up making that a very easy knockout regardless, but the speed boost definitely means that Koraidon will be going first, except for potentially the Walking Wake, depending on speed stats. But this does mean that the Zamazenta and Raging Bolt still are not in a safe position yet.
Yeah, the start of this next turn will be very important for showing us how their speed trained. However, we're not going to get to see that with Walking Wake leaving the battlefield. Calyrex Shadow coming in, dodging that Thunderclap as it was predicted to go. Collision course colliding with the Raging Bolt, doing well over 50% damage to it in return. Heavy Slam collides with Calyrex there, doing good over 50% as well. Plenty of damage coming down, a little bit of dodging going on.
I really like this turn actually from Poke Replays. The going for the pin there with the Thunderclap and the Heavy Slam, just to make sure that, given the Walking Wake obviously having only 4 attacking moves, it either has to attack, get hit by the Thunderclap, or it has to switch out, and obviously the Heavy Slam can cover for that very likely Kali Shadow pivot.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to get in for free on this occasion. However, Calyrex is still feeling probably quite comfortable here. While its health might not be anywhere near as it would like to, it is obviously threatening a KO pickup onto the Raging Bolt to start snowballing its special attack from that Grimnay. It's just whether the Wide Guard and the Astral Barrage Rock, Paper, Scissors is going to be played. Thunderclap coming in, colliding with Koraidon this time, doing good damage, obviously benefiting from the Photosynthesis special attack boost. Astral Barrage and Collision Course hitting into Zamazenta. Zamazenta clinging on by the tiniest sliver of HP. Body Press hitting Koraidon, bringing it out. Knockouts on both sides of the field. All HP is low.
It was honestly such a risky moment there, going for that Astral Barrage. When you've got a Wide Guard facing you down there, it's quite an intimidating moment, knowing that you could, in a situation like that, potentially just go for a Thunderbolt and get Astral Barrage into a Wide Guard and not actually make any progress. But the risk paid off, getting that Zamazenta in such a low health position. Does mean that it'll very likely be vulnerable to just getting psychicked out of the game.
Yeah, there is some interesting problems there. Protect coming in for Zamazenta as opposed to a Wide Guard, which is quite a surprise. Grassy Glide connecting with Calyrex, nearly taking the KO, but failing to, and Flamethrower connecting with Rillaboom. Critical hit being the knockout. However, I think a Sun-boosted Beads of Ruin Flamethrower from a GU that is super effective was not going to miss that KO anytime soon.
I'd not noticed that GU had a Flamethrower on it as opposed to something like an Overheat. It's really interesting as it obviously opens up the ability for the GU to fire off these Sun-boosted, Beads of Ruin boosted Flamethrowers without ever having to risk taking any of the special attack drops from hitting an Overheat.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is probably going to pay off here.
lets it sit around on the field for a lot longer, firing off these attacks and dodge those wide guards, which appears that they might be very soon to be important, given the things we can see going on into this next turn. Wide guard coming out from Zamazenta here, ready to stop the Astral Barrage from Calyrex Shadow. However, it catches that scarfed Chi-Yu's flamethrower and drops down. Calyrex Shadow then drops to a opposing Astral Barrage. Again, knockouts left, right, and center. Regulation Eye proving, as always, it is very volatile and very fast paced as a format.
And here we have a very unfortunate situation. The Walking Wake coming in would have been in a great position if the sun had managed to stay around for just one more turn. But unfortunately, the clouds have to roll in, get rid of it at some point, and the Walking Wake no longer has the speed priority. Has higher speed than the Calyrex, as they've lost their Photosynthesis boost. We just have to rely on the Chi-Yu potentially surviving what's very likely to be another Astral Barrage in this situation.
Yeah, Chi-Yu's going to have to be able to take quite a few hits. It does a lot of damage with that flamethrower, though. Got 60-odd% there, putting plenty of damage in. Astral Barrage comes back in return, clicking Walking Wake down, and Chi-Yu dropping plenty. I feel that Chi-Yu may no longer be... Chi-Yu actually might be able to take this in the next turn, still claiming...
The Chi-Yu having the choice scarf means it's very likely to be going first. I mean, it's going to be going first, given what we've seen so far. And so I would be very surprised if this didn't result in a game 1 win to Rory.
Yeah. Protect coming in, buying a little bit more time, seeing if we can get that grassy terrain recovery to pull Calyrex away from the flamethrower health. However, I think based on the damage we saw a little earlier, Calyrex might be dropping on this occasion. Flamethrower coming in here, managing to finish off Calyrex, knocking it down. But with 7 KOs on this field and Chi-Yu left on very low HP, that game was close, it was fast-paced, it was rapid, and that is game 1. What kind of adaptations do you expect that we could get from Poker Replay to be able to take on this sun-boosted onslaught from Rory?
So, given the previous game not really going on for too long, I would be surprised if Poke Replay was to want to go for that nasty plot setup that their team really wants to be able to go for. The nasty plot obviously making it so that the Psychic can now Oko, given the Life Orb boost as well, can just Oko the Zamazenta, the only thing that really threatens the Wide Guard. Something perhaps like the Ogerpon coming in the lead to help with a follow me, making sure that this Calyrex will be nice and safe. It's something I would really expect to see in the second game.
Yeah, very good insight there. I feel as well with the game wanting to go longer, we might see the bounce bros of Rillaboom and Incineroar coming along together to get in and out of that battlefield over and over again, start pinning things down, slowing the pace of the game down to Poker Replay's desired speed.
I can really see that, especially with potentially getting a Terra Fire on the Rillaboom would mean it effectively is walling out the opposing Calyrex because of the Assault Vest, but also walls out the Chi-Yu and the Koraidon, meaning the only thing that really threatens it is the Walking Wake, which, as we saw from last game, was not actually the hardest thing to deal with.
No, that Walking Wake proving interesting as well. With the Assault Vest, we're so used to seeing either really aggressive Walking Wakes. Having that defensive option is interesting, but I think the main thing to note with this Walking Wake, compared to a lot of others, beyond this Assault Vest, is Snarl will always put a lot of pressure onto opposing Calyrex Shadows, and similarly it's got Aqua Jet, so even when we've run out of the sun, its speed is still it is still something you're going to have to prepare for it to be faster than you, because instead of going, oh, I'm just faster than you, I can run quicker, all right, cool, I'll go faster and priority you in the face.
Absolutely. And without any sashes as well to be worrying about, this also does mean that it's really a case of, if you've missed out on that 3% like the Zamazenta survived with last game in that one turn, if you don't have that sun boost, I don't know the speeds for Walking Wake too well, given it's actually relatively niche choice. But I would not be surprised if that would be an interesting interaction to come up. I would not be surprised if it'd be an interesting interaction to see come up, seeing the Zamazenta get finished off like that if it happened again next game.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll see going into this game too whether these adaptations are what we come into play, or if they come up with anything we haven't even been able to be thinking of, as these players are going to hit the field with their opening Pokemon. Rory hitting the field with Calyrex Shadow and Mousehold, changing up their strategy entirely, whereas Poker Replay leads Calyrex Shadow once again alongside its long-necked friend Raging Bolt.
Yeah, I'm really liking this adaptation. The fact that here we can see Rory's probably wanting to bring this Mousehold not only for the potential Terra Ghost, Astral Barrage specs, being able to delete most things in the game, really. The fact that, yeah, again, the Mousehold is threatening the Feint in the case that the Zamazenta was brought, and the Friend Guard comboing with the special attack damage taken being potentially enough that it could survive an Astral Barrage. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I reckon there's a chance with if it goes into the Terra Ghost only going to normal super effective, that it might actually be able to take on with the Friend Guard depending on training. However, Calyrex Shadow is both Calyrexes are going to hit the Terrestrial button, putting their shiny crowns on. The Poker Replay Shadow is going to go first. The Friend Guard coming in incredibly clutch, living in return. Astral Barrage is firing out left, right, and center. Raging Bolt falling to the floor, 100% taken, and Calyrex Shadow dropped to the red for Poke Replay. That is a lot of damage.
That's more than I was. That's honestly the Friend Guard was perfect there. It's exactly what it needed to do. It set up this really, actually, quite still scary situation. The opposing Calyrex surviving with 8%. I don't believe that a Feint does enough damage to actually finish this off. Obviously, the Feint being good because it's a priority choice, so it will go before opposing Calyrex and deals with that very awkward speed tie situation you frequently get when running a Calyrex into an opposing Calyrex.
Yeah, we're definitely into an interesting situation here with Rillaboom coming into the field. Fake out pressure available into that Mousehold. However, Mousehold could start causing problems around that with Follow Me. Rillaboom could also pressure the Calyrex with Grassy Glides. There's a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong for either player here. So dropping into this turn, Chi-Yu is going to hit the field. Calyrex Shadow is deciding it does not want to be part of this. Fake Out comes in, connects with Mousehold. Mousehold does flinch, showing it was going for that Feint potentially, or Follow Me. Mousehold is immune to that Ghost type move, and Calyrex actually drops to its own Life Orb recoil there. Chi-Yu not taking too much damage in return.
And that's very likely not the kind of turn you want to be seeing when you're using your Calyrex with only one attack left in the tank because of that Life Orb. Being able to see yourself only getting a little bit of damage on something due to a resist does not make such a high value restricted actually get the full potential out of it. Additionally, now the Rillaboom and the Zamazenta both being vulnerable to the Chi-Yu, and with the Terra burnt on Poke Replay's Calyrex Shadow Rider, the Chi-Yu is now looking terrifying with that flamethrower again.
It can even lock into Heat Wave safely here, given that Feint. There is a lot of options for this Chi-Yu to be incredibly problematic. And we're going to see Follow Me coming out from Mousehold here, and Flamethrower from Chi-Yu not being enough to KO Rillaboom without the sun up, which is interesting to see. Body Press coming in into the Mousehold and falling down, while the move that I currently missed from the Rillaboom connects with Chi-Yu and does big damage there.
The Wood Hammer was doing a huge amount more than I was really expecting, given the Chi-Yu resists. I appreciate that it's a relatively squishy Pokemon, a bit of a glass cannon, but in this case, the fact that the Rillaboom was able to do, was that about 50% roughly to the Chi-Yu is quite surprising. But yeah, unfortunately, the recoil being enough for the Rillaboom to KO itself, and now it is one very lonely Zamazenta missing its buddies, as it is now staring down a Calyrex Shadow Rider, a Chi-Yu, and a fourth unrevealed Pokemon. Very likely to be the Koraidon.
These Pokemon in the background do have fairly low HP. However, that Flamethrower did a lot of damage, and Astral Barrage is going to finish it off. My dreams of optimism were crushed fairly quickly there, unfortunately, for Poker Replay. Ending that game, continuing Rory's streak of aggression across these first two games, and proving that best defense is good offense. Hit them hard, hit them fast. They can't hit you back.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly the essence of what running a Cataract Shadow Rider Koraidon team is all about. It is hit fast and hit hard because, like we mentioned earlier, there's only 2 protectors on the team. They don't really have a chance to slow the game down. They either win in the first 4 turns roughly, or they don't. So the plan came along and was perfectly executed. As the Zamazenta being singled out because it's obviously so easy for the remains of the team to handle it, was really exactly as I expect Rory was expecting to play out.
Yeah, for a game one as well, it's nice to see something fast, explosive, high energy. Always keeps it exciting to see what's going on. Commiserations to Pokerupe there on the loss. It does. I think everyone who's played in events and played in games knows that sometimes having those hyper aggro teams played against you where they do beat you in such a fashion can feel quite uncomfortable sometimes. But we saw a lot of good things there also from Pokerupe, like forcing situations where it was 50-50s, which just unfortunately didn't go that way.
Oh, yeah.
So coming up, we're going to move into our next game for the UKITT, which is the Casarroya Lakers taking on the Castelia City Cabalians in a Sword and Shield Season 12 wildcard game.
So here we have Ben's side. Fortunately, I'm also a member of the Casarroya Lakers, so shout out to Ben. But I will not be particularly rooting here because I have to play a neutral, and he's got a hell of an opponent going for him. Here we've got Groudon Lunala. I believe it's quite a well-used pairing back in Sword and Shield days. And whilst I did not play during the Sword and Shield era, I obviously heard about the terrifying Gigantamax Charizard that could just ruin the meta at times.
Yeah, TCPI's favourite can never get away from having new toys to play with. So yeah, we have that massive Charizard with the Charty Berry to protect it from some rock moves. Grimmsnarl once again showing that its set hasn't changed at all in generations, where it is still the screens under the light clay. We've got the also optional G-Max onto that Venusaur, so it can either be a big speedy threat with a sun setup, or it can be additional damage. It can do a lot of interesting things, and Weather Ball on there is kind of funky. Intriguing to see also, it is a protectless Pokemon.
Again, yeah, a lot of offense coming out. I mean, it's not too surprising when you've got this Grimmsnarl that's able to reduce the amount of damage coming onto the team. It means you can really be a bit more aggressive, and by the nature of being more aggressive, the opponent likely will want to play more defensive, just pushing your effective defense further in that direction. Interesting seeing the Incineroar Throat Chop, not something you see much these days. Perhaps you could tell me, was that something that was quite common during the Sword and Shield era?
Yes, because there was a period of time where, if I remember right, Incineroar didn't have access to knockoff, so it had to make do with alternative dark type moves, and it used to choose between Throat Chop, its own Darkest Lariat, since they all had different secondary effects. Throat Chop is obviously valuable. You stop things like Hyper Voice spam and a couple of other sound-based moves coming at you. It gives you an option for protection against something like Perish Song as well. But yeah, and does stop Parting Shot indeed. But the lack of not having access to knockoff didn't hamper Incineroar at all back then. Yeah. Moving on to the second team, bringing on, we have their opponent. It is Dill for the Castelia City Cabalians. They've been playing for a for a reasonable amount of time, taking a bit of a break. However, as I think most of us are aware, with their second place finish at EUIC this year, they have stormed back onto the scene.
I'd particularly like to call out the cheeky and potentially questionable, maybe a judge should have been called on this one, the 7th Mon they brought along. I'm particularly loving the extra Wigglytuff being used here. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays into the team as a whole. Perhaps it's got a particularly good set that we've just not seen used enough in regulation. In season 12 of Sword and Shield.
Humor aside, Wigglytuff, the fun UKIT meme. We've got some Pokemon here that are perhaps less familiar to our newer Scarlet and Violet level players. We've got P2, solid. Amogus, everywhere. Insane, everywhere. Tapu Fini, not even in the game. So some people are about to learn some new stuff about what bulky water that hits quite hard takes forever. So basically, this is very similar to Terapagos now, except it's not a legend and it causes some problems. You've got Palkia, which is always exciting. I love Palkia. I think it's a really cool Pokemon. It does some interesting and weird stuff, especially with the coverage of both Flamethrower and Thunder going on here, which is a bit of a shame that it's not so powerful in the Scarlet and Violet formats. And Calyrex Ice, however, carrying the White Herb, the poor man's clear amulet, since we didn't have access to that back in the day either.
I was looking at this earlier and I was very curious as to why White Herb was a thing. And I was questioning whether that was to handle Intimidates, but did question myself why the lack of a clear amulet before. Yeah, like you mentioned, the clear amulet only being introduced in Scarlet and Violet. One thing I find quite funny is the fact that Calyrex is running basically the exact same set as it's running even now. So type coverage has not changed much in that time.
No, it is what it found its niche. It did it well. It will continue to do it until something else can decide it wants to do it better. However, we'll see what these trainers decide to lead as we are prepared to jump into our first game. We've got these on cart, which is nice and exciting. We're going to see some stuff. We're going to see the cool player cards going on. We've got Dill on our left.
Both look great. Yeah. Well, the Dill one, I think that's a default. There's some elements of
Sword and Shield was lovely. Like, I forget how pretty this game is.
Yeah, there's definitely elements of showing off there. Having the defaults one, and again with the shinies. Yeah, so we've got an Incineroar lead matchup with the Venusaur taking the place of the Palkia. Likely both going to do the gentleman's agreement of faking out the opposing one, I would expect it.
Yeah, it seems to be the classic situation when you end up with two fake out users in the battlefield. Unless you are confident that you are the faster one, you can always go for that aggressive, I'm going to stop your fake out before you fake me out, fake out shenanigans. The I know that he knows that he knows that I know. But until then, we're going to see what these partners are going to try and free themselves up to do, if they're going to be able to get away with doing anything at all. We can see Ben here considering the Dynamax option a few times onto this Venusaur. We might be able to see one coming out straight away. Gigantamax is always an interesting thing to see. These nice big stadiums are something that I'm definitely missing.
Oh, yeah. The fact that that the Dynamax, Gigantamax mechanic has disappeared does mean that the game doesn't have the opportunity to slow down quite as easily. But here we'll go.
Speaking of this Dynamax, we have one massive Palkia hitting the battlefield. It is large. It screams.
It's using its powers of space to distort everyone else's perception of just how big it is. Whether or not it's actually that big is still up for debate.
Counterpoint, though, Ben is going to hit the same Dynamax with Venusaur growing its leaves over its eyes. I'm impressed it doesn't get an accuracy drop when it can't see. But it shouts in terror as it is ready to hit the battlefield. We're going to see some big moves coming out here. Incineroar is going to go for a fake out. It's going to connect into Venusaur, helping to lock it down and prevent that Dynamax going away, whereas Ben's fake out is going to hit the other Incineroar, but it's too late.
That is a very difficult start, getting off the Max Flare directly into the Venusaur. Obviously only surviving because of the Gigantamax right there.
Yeah, that extra health definitely coming in useful. Going into turn 2 very quickly, we have Max Quake coming out, connecting with Incineroar, being able to bring it down very low, but not be able to take the carry on Dill's side. But it is going to raise the special defense of both the Pokemon on Ben's side of the battlefield.
And that special defense will be really big for at least the Incineroar, given the amount of damage the Venusaur's already taken. The idea of just getting hit by another Max Flare will probably bring it out, but that Incineroar getting the special defense boost will make it quite difficult to deal with, especially if the Max Hydro Pump, whatever it turns into, Max Geyser.
Max Geyser, yeah.
Yeah, Max Geyser ends up being used into it, obviously reduced by the sun.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is going to be quite interesting here is that we've got to relearn some of these Dynamax mechanics. Like there, we saw the Venusaur take the fake out and still be able to attack because it's taken a bit of memory, but Dynamax Pokemon are immune to being flinched, so that they aren't having their 3 turns wasted. However, we're going to see this Porygon 2 switching it and catching these big vines from the Vine Lash of the Venusaur, cracking down, doing a respective amount of damage, and Max Geyser coming out. These huge attacks coming out from there. Sun reducing that damage into Incineroar, leaving on a comfortable half health before the rain is going to be set.
So the combination of that Sun and the special defense increase earlier easily made it possible for Incineroar to survive that, getting off this all-important parting shot, which is great because it means you can get another use of the Intimidate later and reset the fake out.
Yeah, being able to couch your own fake out, especially as we're coming into the final turn of Dynamax for both players here. We'll be going back to a normal and fair game of Pokemon, the way it is supposed to be played. Groudon coming back into the battlefield here, resetting that rain into the sun, reducing potential Max Geyser damage again. Vine Lash chipping down these extra damage, doing, if I remember rightly, it was 1/8, perhaps 1/10 of your opponent's health over the next 4 to 5 turns.
Yeah, I'm really liking the switch as well. By bringing the Groudon in here, it does also mean that the sun comes back out again. As much as some of us may not be liking that in the current climate, it does mean the Groudon is also reducing the potential of another Max Geyser's damage, just due to the Palkia currently threatening still a lot of damage. Rain boosted, stab boosted. This Max Geyser's kind of going to be weakened a lot.
Yeah, and as we see, the damage there is reduced. Groudon also getting to live that attack on half HP, but we did miss Porygon 2 taking another Vine Lash to the face as it is prepared to set something up, I believe. In this situation, if I was Porygon 2, I would be looking to set up that Trick Room if I can survive to the end of the turn. Ground goes to Precipice Blades. Palkia does indeed dodge that attack, as it is never the most reliable move in the world. And Porygon 2, however, does take it and drops, returning to its trainer.
It is the risk you end up having to take with the famously called Precipice Blades, often missing at least one target. Here we come in with the Incineroar switching again, and getting in the Intimidate to weaken this Groudon, likely encouraging it to want to go back, escape the rain, given it's not exactly a fan of water moves, and wanting to potentially bring in something like a Incineroar, perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps I think Incineroar could be a good call here. I feel very much in agreement that Groudon is going to be wanting to get out of this battlefield right now, no longer wanting to suffer the Intimidate drop, nor that potentially rain-boosted water moves. Both Dynamaxes have resolved here, so we're back to a normal scale game of Pokemon. Nothing looking terribly tiny on the battlefield down there anymore.
Yeah, it's almost strange going back to the more usual scales of Scarlet and Violet, being able to just see everything right up close and personal again, as opposed to enlarged at a distance. It's really interesting. I believe I missed what moves were locked in here, so we'll have to see if we can get a Hydro Pump into Groudon.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Groudon staying into the battlefield here, so it does eat that Hydro Pump and proceeds to get knocked out, not being able to pull much in the way of momentum for Ben here.
That's unfortunate. It also mean that the rain is probably going to be staying around for the rest of the game. If there's something potentially like a Tapu Fini, was it? Yeah, Tapu Fini in the back, then the Muddy Water potentially could get its damage boost on top of the risk of lowering the accuracy for whatever else is left in the back.
Yeah, Dill there being able to take 2 KOs and not take any particular damage in return other than the Vine Lash damage. Does happen to pick up Dill's Incineroar, however. We did also get to see the difference between the two Incins there. Dill's carrying the Darkest Lariat, spinning flying wrestling moves at his opponent versus a fairly simple throat chop. Incin hitting the battlefield here for Ben, prepared to put its Intimidate down. Calyrex Ice this time coming in for Dill and Lunala hitting the battlefield. We have 3 more Ubers on that battlefield. Incin going for its Intimidate, dropping the attack stats of Palkia, which doesn't mind it. Calyrex, which isn't happy about it. However, it's got its trusty White Herb to return it back to normal.
And now we see the benefits of running something that can protect you from the all-important Intimidate that run around everywhere. In this situation, yeah, seeing the Moongeist being locked into the Calyrex, it's very likely that we would expect to see something like this, especially about the availability of a Terra to make this a resistible move, and the Fake Out coming in because why would you not want to click this in such a safe situation?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really cool animation that Moongeist Beam gets to have now. One big moon, one big laser beam. Yeah, indeed. Connecting with Calyrex, doing huge damage, but not being able to manage to KO there, which is unfortunate. However, Glacial Lance, with its additional power, since that lost some power in Scarlet and Violet, connecting in there, putting in a healthy amount of damage, but surprisingly few, does break the Mirror Shield, Wonder Guard, whatever it's called, on Shadow Shield. There we go. I remember the normal abilities.
There we go. The Calyrex going down, despite doing a very impressive job at staying around. It's unfortunately been taken out by those vines.
Yeah, so but weirdly is of the closest VGC has ever gotten to field effects reminiscent of singles. Being a major threat has been during the Gigantamax formats. With all of the base form Cantonian starter Pokemon having their signature G-Max move, lay a ticking field effect and adding just this extra burn, an extra chip throughout the course of a game. We see there, though, that with that coming on, Ben managing to claim game 1 for the Castle Royale Lakers.
Yeah, it was really interesting getting to see the use of that Gigantamax ticking damage, really showing the power of what just whittling away at your opponent's health over the span of quite a few turns, really. What that kind of can do as an impact. I would be interested to see how Dill adapts into the second game. Perhaps being able to mitigate a bit of that ticking damage with a bit of pivoting from the Amoonguss, perhaps. Using that regenerator to keep itself going, and kind of trying to slow down the game so that they can potentially outlast the field effects. I assume the field effects do disappear, right?
Yeah, they've got, I believe it's 4 or 5 turns. I can't remember which. They sit around for a little while, though. I've just been informed by our staff that they are 4 turns. But 4 turns is a lot of the time in VGC a very long time, as I'm sure anyone who's tried to sit and outrun the remaining turns of Trick Room has gotten used to.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised as well to see a use of the Trick Room trying to get up, especially given there is 3 Trick Rooms on Dill's team. Not seeing one get used does surprise me, just given you would expect there would be the ideal situation trying to get the Calyrex in, get off its Glacial Lancers before getting hammered like it did in the previous game.
Yeah, definitely interesting. And we'll see if Dill is able to potentially adapt with that Trick Room setup going into game 2 here, as our trainers are ready to hit the battlefield with their leads once more.
Wow, it's the same trainer cards. Be cool if they ever switched them up between them. The game of top trumps almost.
That would be very fun, having you like powering up trainer card every round.
Oh, yeah. We're getting custom startup animation. Oh, and here we go. The same lead as the first game, the Shiny Incineroar. Interesting adapt from Ben, though. We've got the Grimmsnarl and the Charizard instead. Are we likely to be seeing potentially the G-Max Wildfire coming out? Again, bring down this field effect. And it looks like we're going to be also seeing the sun come out.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one here. G-Max Wildfire obviously doesn't set up the sun, unlike G-Max Inferno or Dynamax Inferno, whatever it's called. The fire move Go Burr. It's one of those. It doesn't set up the sun. Instead, it sets up the burning field, which could be always an interesting one to do. But the other big thing that made Charizard interesting is having big access to Hurricane, giving it the max airstream, boosting the speed of the things on its field. Also, with Grimmsnarl here, it's going to start reducing the damage it's going to be taking. However, I say Grimmsnarl's here, it's decided it doesn't want to be anymore.
Yeah, I guess I got a little bit scared off by the Palkia, worried, we might distort the space between my screens that I might want to put up. And it seems we're going straight for the Dynamax onto, I didn't see which one it was. Charizard. Okay, so the G-Max Charizard, possibly one of Big Pikachu's favorite Pokemon.
Just look at that fiery collar; it's gorgeous.
That look great, and the Max Airstream. So this will be. What I do know is that it. What?
So welcome to Sun Boosted Solar Power Charizard. It hits like an absolute freight train. And
that's
absurd as well. Yes. Yes,
what?
it is.
Oh my. And you get a speed boost.
And you get a speed. Not just you, your partner as well.
So it's effectively the same as getting like a half a tailwind.
Yes.
Wow. I don't really know. I don't really know what to say to that one. I think the Calyrex is very brave in this situation then. Although that, I guess, here we go, the Trick Room. That makes sense. So actually, this Max Airstream may have been harmful.
Yeah, receiving that speed boost could definitely be detrimental to Charizard and Groudon here while we are playing in the sun. The Palkia and the Calyrex Ice Rider are now playing in Trick Room. They do not mind being able to sit there and go much faster than the Pokemon in front of them now.
Yeah, so the Charizard now is the Charizard and the Groudon both in really risky positions. The Calyrex obviously being the fastest thing available right now on the field, meaning it's very safely able to go for this Glacial Lance, reducing the Groud, potentially just one-shotting a Groudon. Not quite sure on the cap for that one.
We won't get to see that as a Groudon does come back out in favour of Grimmsnarl, and we're going to get a Dynamax here from Dill. That dive ball makes me think this is going to be Palkia going back up into the sky, distorting reality and getting nice and big. Here it is, one big pearl. Imagine the value you get for them on the second-hand market.
Let me guess. Are we going to be seeing a Max Geyser? Because I've got a feeling the Charizard is not liking that, and that's why it's deciding to try and block as much as it can.
Yeah, Max Guard coming out there, protecting it from all damage there. Glacial Lance bouncing off it, however, connected to Grimmsnarl, doing huge damage to it. And Max Geyser coming out from Palkia, going into the Grimmsnarl slots, connecting, finishing it off, meaning it was not safe to return to the battlefield. And we will be putting the rain back up.
Interesting. At least this means the Groudon can at least freely switch back in, turning the rain back off again. But here we're going to be seeing the Lunala coming in instead. Very helpful. Obviously, it's got the ability to turn off the Trick Room, potentially, putting this Charizard back at the top of the speed order. Alongside threatening the Calyrex Ice Rider with a Meteor Beam, giving it a nice +1, which it will really appreciate if it's able to go off before potentially being doubled by the Calyrex and Palkia.
Yeah, the Lunala is definitely an interesting position. If it can get away with what it needs to get away with and not just fall, it will be causing some big problems. Glacial Lance there doing huge damage to Charizard, even though it's got its HP doubled. Lunala taking half the damage from a Shadow Seal. It's just going straight for that Meteor Beam. Interestingly, underspeeding / outspeeding Palkia, raising its special attack, eating its Power Herb, ready to throw off a Meteor Beam into what we assume to be Calyrex. Does the Meteor Beam connect? It does. One big laser beam flying into a horse, and it
survived
on once again.
Wow. This Calyrex has really been trained well.
Yeah, Calyrex proving once again it is the bulkiest Pokemon for a while.
And it seems, unfortunately, Charizard is going to have to go back to Ben. It has done a mighty job getting hammered by the Palkia at this point. Was that the final turn of Dynamax?
That would have been the last turn for Ben. However, Palkia has, since they didn't Dynamax at the same time this time, Palkia still has one more move left.
So
before it shrinks.
So we are very likely to see this this Palkia go for one more Max Geyser, turning the sun off. Turning the sun off, bringing in the rain, and likely putting this ground in a very risky position again. We'll have to see, because the Groudon, I believe, is a little bit slower than Lunala normally for its base stats.
Yeah, it can be. So very much depends on how these Pokemon are trained. Intriguing to see that
we'll see the Groudon and the Lunala end up actually both underspeeding, potentially doubling into a Palkia in this situation.
Yeah, for sure. Lunala going for the Moongeist Beam here, as it is the first thing to move with Calyrex leaving the battlefield, connecting into that newly returned to the field Incineroar for it to bounce straight away back to Dill here. We're now going to see this interaction. Groudon going for a Swords Dance, very brave in the face of a Max Geyser, but we saw in the previous game it is able to take one of them. We'll see if it'll be able to handle a second. Max Geyser coming out from Palkia. One big watery beam into Groudon's face. Groudon, however...
And it goes down.
Going straight down this time.
I'm guessing that must have been... So last game when it survived, that really was just because of the special defense boot? No, that was on the Incineroar.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what's going on. It's interesting to see that has managed to drop.
Did we see a mini Max roll?
It's certainly a hell of a setup there. However, Calyrex is going to be returning to the battlefield here, and it is Lunala versus the world. It might have its +1 boost. I believe we might be going into the last turn of Trick Room here, if my ability to count is correct. However, my ability to count goes 1, 2, 3, many lots.
We're going to be seeing Lunala obviously locking into this Moongeist we've just seen. Going into the Palkia first, it has got the +1, and without the Dynamax effectively doubling its health, it does mean that the Palkia now is almost like effectively taking double damage compared to what it would have until this point, which is likely why you'll see that the Calyrex protecting. That's big. That's giving a huge amount of space to Ben for this one attack.
The Moongeist Beam, the animation has started, so it is going to be going into Palkia here. Going to pump in some good damage, being at +1, well over 60%. Hydro Pump going to come in, managing to connect through that 80% accuracy. Rain boosted into Lunala is going to be able to take the knockout.
Yeah, unfortunately, this Lunala, as much as it might try, it was not able to sustain the kind of damage taken in that game. But that does mean we get the benefit of getting to go to a game 3.
Yeah, we definitely get. It's always nice to go to game 3. Keeps things nice and exciting. We get a little bit more to play with. It's always fun to see we get to see Palkia putting on a bit of a masterclass here in both games. It seems to have been the problem Pokemon for Ben, even though Ben managed to handle it in game 1. This game 2, it managed to take over and take all of the important KOs that it needed to. Which, again, it's nice to see a bit of Palkia action since we don't get to see it in Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah, now when you get into a situation where you go into game 3 where you potentially had your first game go well, but then you adapt, predicting some sort of change from your opponent, and then your second game doesn't go well, you're then in the situation where you often wanting to go back to the kind of attempt you did with game 1 because you know that one's worked. So I'm wondering if we can end up seeing the Charizard actually staying back for this third game and seeing the Venusaur instead, bringing out those vines and chipping away again. especially given it wouldn't be benefited, it would be resisting these max geysers a lot better.
Yeah, it certainly would be able to take those hits better. However, we will see very shortly that these players are ready to hit the battlefield for Game 3. Let's see if they've taken any of your advice into account here, Whammy. We've got these trainer cards once more ready to go, showing the style. We will be hitting the battlefield very soon. When the game decides it wants to load, ever reliable switch loading times. Dill is going to be leading with the ever reliable Palkia and Incineroar for the third game in a row. Sparkle's coming down here. Groudon and Venusaur hitting the battlefield for Ben.
Interesting to see the adaptation to a degree here by the fact that we don't have the fake out from the Incineroar on Ben's side to threaten into the Palkia, really forcing it to have to Dynamax straight away. The Venusaur, though, coming through as we might have expected. I believe this does mean the chlorophyll ability on the Venusaur does mean its speed is effectively doubled, and it is likely to get off this sleep powder that's just been locked into the Palkia.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see if that is able to connect. Palkia, however, deciding it wants to go big or go home, and it has chose big. It'll be once again Dill's Dynamaxmon of choice screaming into the crowd here, ready to lay down some pain, assuming it's able to stay awake. Let's see where Dill puts this fake out, with fake out going into play. Does not go for the fake out. Sleep powder connects straight into Palkia, meaning these Dynamax turns are going to be a lot less efficient than they could have been.
This might be that one sleep powder may have been all that was necessary, because the sleep being able to last for 3 turns, unless Dynamax changes that mechanic somehow, does mean that there is a chance that all 3 of Palkia's Dynamax turns could be wasted with it just having the world's biggest nap.
That is one very big sleep indeed. The size of the Z's will make Snorlax jealous. Parting shot coming out for Incineroar, returning into Porygon 2. Then we have Groudon going for Swords Dance, setting up. It might be at -1. It says, nah, +2, mate, and goes back to still being able to hit harder than it was going to a moment ago.
This will be really interesting to see, because the Groudon's Rock Slide and Press Miss Blades could both be really effective at bringing down the P2, given it's known for being quite a bulky mon, especially when it can just sit there and spam out those recovers.
Yeah, it's definitely something incredibly bulky. Being able to put extra damage is very good. Speaking of extra damage, G-Max Venusaur is going to hit the battlefield, once again covering its eyes but not reducing its accuracy, as it is going to be preparing to unleash a long series of attacks into this sleeping Palkia. G-Max Vinelash is going to come down, crashing into Porygon 2, doing a good slightly over a quarter there to it, setting up the vines on the battlefield. Palkia is going to nap very large, and Peter is going to go for a foul play, which is absolutely terrifying into this boosted Groudon. However, that did not do as much damage as I was expecting it to. Groudon, however, feeling brave, boosting its attack once more.
The unfortunate situation of this P2 ending up actually being that little bit faster than the Groudon means it's actually missed out on a lot of damage with that foul play, which you would probably expect would be really effective. It's also an interesting one, because this also means the P2 is not really wanting to go for the Trick Room here, even though that's one of its best uses.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see the Groudon. Groudon must be trained to be fairly slow to be actually going underneath the P2 here. He's on a very dedicated Trick Room team, which makes it interesting. But for having the bravery to go for a second Sword Dance, especially seeing we can see that foul play is available. However, if the players have played Sword and Shield Season 12 correctly, as was done at the time, neither of these players have an open team sheet.
Oh, I see. Back then it wasn't open team sheets?
Yes, open team sheet was a new invention for Scarlet and Violet with all the terrestrialization shenanigans going on. Max Quake, however, deciding it was going to connect with Porygon 2, doing a bit more damage. We're going to get some special defense boosts on Ben's side of the battlefield. Is Palkia going to be able to break through its sleep on this turn? And it is not. It is going to spend all 3 turns dozing. Foul play going into ground. Is it going to be able to take it with its +2 boost? Yes, it is. Fairly healthy, which is a nice surprise. Eating a citrus berry, chomp, 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 back to some health, and it is going to fire off Precipice Blades. +2, doing good damage to Porygon 2, picking up, and even at double health for Palkia, doing amazing damage.
This is actually really huge because the Porygon 2 is possibly one of the only options for slowing down this game, getting up the Trick Room safely, and now this means that we might expect to see come in maybe something like the only remaining Incin, or the potential, what I would expect to see in the back, the Calyrex Ice. Neither of these things actually want to be right in front of a +3, I believe we're at.
+2. It's now up back to +1.
Oh, yes.
It's taken an Intimidate, a
2 Intimidate,
Swords Dance, Intimidate.
Yes, so
we're back to +1.
Is it +1,
yeah. The joys of Incineroar of keeping track of everything can become quite difficult. Speaking of keeping track, it's hard to do that when you're flinching Fake Out going into our boosted Groudon here. Palkia going to catch these vines and drop from them, being clattered onto its head.
The rudest awakening ever will be back at the Pokemon Center after being sent to sleep and just standing there, showing off how well it can bend space even in its sleep. Unfortunately, it's kind of wasted, this Dynamax. And now we're in this interesting situation where without a Fake Out, this Calyrex Ice Rider is against, I believe, all 4 remaining ones on Ben's side.
Yeah, Ben has managed to wield this Groudon and Venusaur very effectively, being able to take down the Pokemon on Dill's side of the battlefield. It's a bit of a shame we've not been able to see the Tapu Fini and the Amoonguss hit the battlefield. We're not sure what they've been capable of throughout this game. However, we might get to see one of Ben's Pokemon in the back. We might not. It very much depends. However, with this Weather Ball available for Venusaur, it does still have a Fire-type move, which it can use to threaten Calyrex with.
It's looking very unlikely, given the +1 and the Rock Slide being super effective into both the Incineroar and the Calyrex. It does mean we've got this very likely situation where if the Rock Slide hits both of them, there's even the potential for flinches on top of that. We end up with the Groudon potentially just finishing off this game right here and now.
Yeah, certainly not sure how Venusaur is going to leave the battlefield. We're going to have Incin come down, scaring Pokemon. Dark Lariat is going to be what's going to clatter in return. It's not going to take much damage, it's not very effective. And the White Herb would have reset the Calyrex. +1 Precipice Blades, managing to connect with both Pokemon, knocking out Incineroar, doing a huge damage and a good chunk to our Calyrex as well. But it lives enough to put up the Trick Room, meaning it's going to buy itself a few turns of going first if it is able to live long enough.
Yeah, it's a very unfortunate situation to be in, but if anyone could do it, you would want it to be restricted. I would expect here, given this turn with the Fake Out pressure, I would expect the Protect to be coming out from the Calyrex to at least make sure that it's not going to just get... And we're unfortunately going to see the battle get cancelled, meaning the set is going to Ben.
Congratulations to the Casa Royal Lakers being able to take themselves another win onto their roster. How did the rest of your team do this week, Whammy?
We have had a great start to the season. We've... I don't want to spoil too much. I expect there's some sort of announcements later on. Maybe production can... Okay, probably, production says. But yeah, the team's done very well, and I can hope that we're only going to keep this kind of momentum going, and not have the momentum of that Dynamax Palkia in Game 3.
Yeah, it was unfortunate being able to get put to sleep, but it was very well played by Ben then, knowing that sleep is one of the best ways to shut down a Dynamax Pokemon. It burns all of its useful turns, at least the majority of them. Realistically, you might get one attack out of it if you're lucky. But losing Dynamax when that is 3 turns of incredible power is definitely unfortunate for Dill. Commiserations for not being able to take that home, but taking it to a Game 3. And a quite competitive game 3, given that Palkia was asleep for that entire time, as well, is always a good run.
We have got game 3 to look at, though, which will at least be a nice little change. We go back to the Scarlet and Violet era. So this match will be between Asher and Jono. So in this case, Asher, we have the Calyrex, and once again, we're seeing a Groudon. Relatively rare restricted these days, so it's quite funny to see it being used twice in 2 sets.
Yeah. So 2 sets, 2 games. Very exciting to see more Groudon. I'm always happy to see our sun-boosted armadillo. Yeah, it's an armadillo. Ready to cause some problems for people. This time it's going to be carrying that assault vest, not threatening any sword stances for Asher on this occasion. But bringing the sun, it's going to bring some friends. It's going to bring some chlorophyll boosting, speed boosting Sleepy Boys in the form of Jumpluff instead of our Venusaur from the previous game, and it's bringing a horse of its own this time in Shadow Rider.
It's also got the benefit of a second 4-legged friend with the photosynthesis, obviously, on the Raging Bolt, one of the best sauropods in all of Pokemon.
Strong dinosaurs are indeed strong. I think the main thing to note here for this game that will be quite interesting as well is that this is the expanding force variant of Calyrex carrying an Encore and only spread moves, so Wide Guard could certainly be an issue for both of these restricted Pokemon. Hopefully we'll be able to see how that gets handled going over.
Yeah, it's quite a risk actually running with this, but I guess we'll end up seeing what they'll be coming across. Maybe there isn't even a Wide Guard on them. It doesn't look like there is.
There's no Wide Guard for Jono.
So yeah, the only potential threat is that Rillaboom with the Grassy Surge, bringing in the grassy terrain, overwriting the psychic terrain. So if there was a need for the expanding force, you know that there's always that chance, unless the Rillaboom has already been dealt with.
Yeah, Rillaboom could always be in the back to mess up that chance. One of the things that's interesting here is this is another very aggressive team from one of our players. Jono is apparently the only person to have top cut a major with Hippowdon, which is very cool. I do like Hippowdon. However, there are no hippos on this team. Only gorillas, dogs, horses, and cotton fluff fish and whatever a Clefairy is.
It's cotton? I did read his Pokedex earlier today. Apparently it likes to show up in people's homes and just fill it with cotton and then just fly off. So it definitely deserves that ability of prankster of all things.
Yeah. Causing people problems is the best way to go. It's definitely a very aggressive team here from Jono. There is Scarf, there is speed, there is aggression, there is opportunity for a little bit of setup stuff. But it feels very much like this is, I'm going to protect my big friend, and that big friend is going to hit you very, very hard.
Yeah, I think that means we're good to go. Let's see how things play out.
For our players here, they're going to drop. We have nearest us is Asher. On the other side of the battlefield is Jono. We have Sun, Speed, and Dogs hitting the battlefield. Groudon setting the sun up for Jumpluff. Jumpluff is going to be prepared to get its chlorophyll boost, doubling its speed, threatening sleepy times for Clefairy and Zacian. Zacian getting its attack boost from Intrepid Sword, and Clefairy ready to protect the dog.
So it's really interesting here with the Jumpluff threatening not only the Tailwind to give the speed boost to Groudon, which would mean it could potentially go for the fastest Precipice Blades you've ever seen. It would mean that this Zacian would probably be in that situation where, depending on how effective the Friend Guard is, it may need to Terra to survive.
Yeah, being able to force a Terra early is always good. It's a Terra Fairy as well, so that will make player hit very hard if he's able to get through. Our players ready to power through into this turn 1, and we'll see where this 50-50 from Jumpluff goes. Coming Doom, Clefairy is going to back out. Grassy Surge is going to hit the battlefield with Rillaboom, Terra Fairy coming out, Terra Fire coming out. Pokemon, you were right, it is Tailwind, it is Precipice Blades, it is hitting hard, it is hitting fast, but not hard enough. Terra Fairy, player of one-shotting Jumpluff in return.
Really interesting to see that this Zacian's actually able to take a lot more than you may have expected. The Terra Fairy showing that even without the Terra, it would have survived the Precipice Blades. But at least now we're seeing the Calyrex come in, which is great, bearing in mind the Rillaboom is able to threaten the Fake Out into the opposing team, but the Calyrex is able to ignore it.
Yeah, definitely. Keeps things quite interesting here. Let's go into the next turn and see what damage is going to be put down. Rillaboom arrives and leaves just as quickly. Clefairy still returning to the battlefield to eat that Heat Crash, and eat that Heat Crash it does.
That poor little fairy.
She's been sat on by a massive lava-filled armadillo.
And we're going to see Rillaboom show up again. Once again, bringing that fake out pressure, seeing if we can scare off this Groudon from, once again, trying to sit on a Rillaboom. Which, who would have thought an armadillo on a gorilla would be so scary to be experiencing for Jono?
I think it's certainly something scary depending on where you are. However, we're going to this turn Fake Out. It's decided it doesn't want to be sat on this time. Calyrex is going for Astral Raj, launching its ghosts at both of the opponents. Zacian is going to take it like a champ and go in for a Behemoth Blade, which does plenty of damage back to the Calyrex, reducing it to the red.
The Calyrex surviving is so important because now it can go for another Astral Barrage, which will, as we've just seen, it will do enough into both the Rillaboom and the Zacian, and it would be able to pick up that +2 boost to its stats. Given the Calyrex as well on Jonas' side, we'd probably expect that's likely to be in the back, so it's not like there's a safe pivot as well to bring in.
Yeah, it'll be very nice if he's able to pick it up, but he does have to respect the potential Grassy Glide from this Rillaboom. Is it going to get hit in the face very quickly by a sliding gorilla? It decides it doesn't want that. It protects. Zacian is going to protect itself as well. Grassy Glide comes out into that protect from Calyrex, is going to take the hit. Precipice Blades coming in, threatening both Pokemon, however, not enough to pick up the KO on Rillaboom at all, doing respectable damage, but not enough for not very effective move.
I can imagine the gorilla is very happy to see the Precipice Blades coming out and avoiding getting sat on by a lava armadillo. It does mean that now the Calyrex not having the ability to protect, well, having a low chance to be able to protect for another turn, and only having one turn left of Tailwind means you really want this Calyrex to get off its attack now.
Yeah, this is a very important turn for Asher here. As we go into it, are we going to be able to protect things? What pivots are we going to have available? Going in, Calyrex is going to leave the battlefield. Chi-Yu is going to come in. If it thinks going to be able to take that Grassy Glide, well, it will be that. It still does respectable amounts of damage. Turns out that Zacian is able to connect a player off doing player off all Behemoth Blade doing respectable damage into Groudon, but with that Terra Fire, it is able to eat that damage, catching a Heat Crasher return and knocking the dog down a peg or two.
So this Chi-Yu is a Choice Scarf Chi-Yu with the without a Dark Pulse. Actually, it has Snarl, and instead of a Dark Pulse, it has Ruination. So it's not necessarily threatening a straight one shot onto this Calyrex, which will mean we'll have to see if it's able to do enough in one turn.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see if it comes back to bite them, especially for an Asian cat. That is, however, a Dark Pulse connecting in and being able to KO the Calyrex Shadow, and Heat Crash is going into that Rillaboom, putting it on Melancholy Hill. Our Gorilla is not going to be able to make it through the rest of this turn, handing the win and game 1 to Asher for the Sky Pillar Saurus.
Yeah,
it turns
out, unlike me, Asher is actually able to read his own open team sheets and actually does have Dark Pulse, and it's actually Jono who doesn't have Dark Pulse on the Chi-Yu. So,
aha! Yes.
That's it. But they both run Ruination, which is an
Mm.
interesting tech that they both chose to go with.
We did establish prior to this that reading was neither of our strong points, and once again that has come to fruition, I think, for both of us. But yeah, no, it definitely makes it interesting having that Dark Pulse there. 3 dark moves, but no single target fire move for Asher, meaning that it might struggle a little further with that Rillaboom. Definitely an interesting one. Both players playing very aggressive, trying to keep the momentum going for them. Both support Pokemon eating high uber-powered damage to the face as well, not being able to spend very long on the battlefield to protect their allies.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite interesting seeing that the Ash's Calyrex didn't even need to rely on its Focus Sash. It took a hit that took down, was it 79% of its HP? And then it ended up not even needing to rely on its item. So it'll be interesting to see whether it could be used even more aggressively this game, potentially ending the set quickly, or if we'll end up seeing actually just going for a more controlled sort of approach with the Encores as well. See if we can lock up the game in that way.
Yeah, Encore definitely can certainly cause some problems. Threatening against Protect, etc. Leads coming down this time. Asher staying steady with Groudon and Jumpluff. Jono bringing Zacian, however, swapping in for the Cotton Ball Prankster. That is Whimsicott.
Do you get that feeling? I've got a feeling there's an oncoming storm. In fact, it almost feels like a tailwind from both sides. I expect. I'll be interested to see if that actually ends up coming to fruition, especially given the Whimsicott does not have a Focus Sash, so it's possible that the Zacian getting a Prankster Tailwind on it with Behemoth Blade potentially being able to one-shot the Jumpluff before it can even get that up, putting John in a very safe spot.
See how it'll be able to play. Jumpluff is still a very fast Pokemon. It could be trained to outspeed Zacian regardless. However, that is a lie. It lives the Behemoth Blade, though, on the tiniest of HP, managing to get a Tailwind up. Heat Crash cracking into Zacian, also not being able to pick up the KO, which is quite a surprise, but it is one very heavy dog, and living quite comfortably on the yellow.
Yeah, the Jumpluff really showing that actually it's not carrying just a Covert Cloak, but it's also carrying an invisible Focus Sash, which is kind of a bit unfair. The Calyrex has got it already. But now we've got this really interesting situation where having the Tailwind up on both sides means it does still have the ability to threaten with Sleep Powders, so it's still likely to be a high priority target to deal with whenever possible.
Yeah, what this Whimsicott is going to be able to try and do to bring a break to the situation as the players get ready to hit us in the next turn with some moves. We are going to go through. The sun is still beaming down. Chi-Yu is going to come in for the Cotton Fluff. We only have one Cotton Fluff, but it does dodge the Encore from Whimsicott there. Behemoth Blade hitting into Groudon, only doing a respectable amount. Resisted. Heat Crash, however, setting fire to Whimsicott and dropping it back to Jono.
Yeah, unfortunately, Cotton is famously quite flammable. So, unfortunately, yes, once again, the Heat Crash coming in is not exactly what Whimsicott likes to experience. And we're in this situation where the Chi-Yu is threatening the Calyrex with what this time I can correctly say is a Dark Pulse, and not just a Snarl.
Yeah, it was a very good time to bring in that Chi-Yu there, especially being able to get it in for free. Chi-Yu, however, going for that Heat Wave, taking out Zacian. Calyrex going for the Terrestrialization into Dark to dodge that Dark Pulse, and dodge it does because it's a Heat Wave instead, hitting some big damage. Astral Barrage coming down, taking out a respectable amount of damage into both these Pokemon. Groudon having special defense removed. And it
looks like that's the game, unfortunately. Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't get game 3, but that was a very decisive, very impressive game 2 by Asher. Yeah, that was
for sure.
That's just a small snippet, though, of some of the great matches that have been going on all week, and I believe we likely still have some going on this evening. I'm really glad to see that we're starting off so strong already, and I'm excited to see what else will be coming up. How are you feeling about this, Adam?
Oh, I'm wonderfully excited. I've been very happy because what we haven't had are any long slugfests given the heat that we've got outside. what I'd have quite liked is some of those tailwinds myself. Right about now, I'm distinctly lacking a fan, so it is quite warm. But other than that, it has been wonderful to see these games. This is the first half of the games we have for you today. Congratulations to the Sky Pillasaurus, the Casa Royal Lakers, and the Twin Leaf Typhlosions on being able to take their wins down live on stream. With the rest of the games ahead of us, we will be cutting to a break shortly to hand over to our colleagues for the cast. Whammy, have you got any final words before we hand over?
No, I think that's pretty much it. It's just there's been great games. Thanks so much everyone for playing and for watching. And yeah, we will continue to watch from the chat. So thanks so much for having us, and bye, chat.
We'll hand over, leave you in capable hands of our fellow casters. There'll be a 10 to 15 minute break, and we will be joining you again soon for 3 more incredibly exciting Pokemon matches. Ta-ra.
Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. If you thought the weather in the UK was been warm this week, it's nothing compared to the sizzling set of matches we've lined up for you today. My name is Sam Keneally, or Smar, if you'd prefer, and I am honoured to be joined by brilliant co-host, who I will let introduce themselves.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. Hi, everyone. My name is Lee Farnell. I am co-hosting today. As Sam said, we've seen some absolutely amazing games so far, and big well done to all of the players who've taken part, not just in today's stream, but also throughout the entire tournament that's been happening throughout the week. Sam, have you been keeping up with the action?
Oh, honestly, I've had the stream up the entire time. I was eating my dinner alongside it, and oh god, the matches so far have been winning. Considering we've only had 3 so far, obviously we've got 3 more lined up that we're going to see in the second half here. All of them have been so good, and I tell you what, it was really nice actually just to see Sword and Shield again. I never thought I'd say I'd missed Dynamax, Gigantamax, or anything regarding that game, but genuinely, I really missed seeing it and seeing the visuals and everything was really nice.
Yeah, I saw the Sword and Shield atmosphere is just great,
Yeah.
and it is always nice to kind of throw back to those previous regulations. But also, as mentioned by our previous co-casters, no open team sheets either, so almost a completely different style of playing as well for the players who are not used to such a format. Since obviously Scarlet and Violet came in, open team sheets have been a thing. And speaking of Scarlet and Violet, we're going to have some great matches coming up. We've got 2 in our Regulation I format, but we also have our wild card, which we'll keep secret just for now, and we'll wait until we get there, but it's going to be a very good time.
Yeah, we're going to keep that one nice and quiet because I think we are going to quite literally save it for the very end. But I'll tell you what, I am very excited for it. But I feel like that's a good opportunity to go straight into our first match, which will be a Regulation I game. And Lee, take it away. What are we seeing here?
Well, I have the absolute pleasure of introducing my teammate, because I am also a member of the Pormot Paramedics.
Oh, no.
So I am not that I'm biased at all. Both pairs I'm sure will do great. But this is Violane or Semaphore. They are running a hard trick room team. No, not hard trick room, sorry. Perish Trap team by the looks of it. My apologies. They are representing the Pormot Paramedics this week. Their fun fact, they beat Camerup so badly one time that he talked about it to his friends who don't play Pokemon at his wedding. There we go. So poor Cammy.
That's leaving a lasting impression.
There is a very long-lasting impression, to have that sort of impact. But yes, a Perish Trap team. We've seen similar teams before. Obviously, Perish Trap team, very popular, especially at EUIC earlier this year. But let's talk through some of these Pokemon, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting actually to see. Obviously, you've got that Koraidon there, which has been kind of a staple of these Perish teams. Obviously, Wolfiglick piloting it to amazing success at EUIC. But what is really interesting to see here is actually that Trap Ghost there, holding the obviously the Power Hub with the Meteor Beam, the Terra Starstorm, of course, and the Rock Polish is super interesting. Nothing like a Calm Minder there, which you do sometimes see on Trap Ghost. So it's really exciting to see how Semaphore will actually pilot this Trap Ghost here. But obviously backed up with that Screamtail, that Gothitail, and of course the Boot Bonnet. Nearly forgot the name of that thing there.
No, absolutely. Like you said, the Calm Mind missing on the Terrapagos is huge. Terrapagos sometimes relies on that Calm Mind to get its special attack boost so it can hit those Terra Starstorms. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this team plays out. But absolutely, we see the usual suspects here that we see when it comes to Perish Trap. We see the Screamtail, we see the Gothitail, we see the Incineroar. So these all put huge pressure on the opponents once they get trapped within that. So we'll have to see how all this plays out.
Yeah, and of course, we will see the opponent next up. And of course, it is your classic Swordfish there from Jamie, aka Janoff there, with that Zacian, the Kyogre, the Rillaboom. The Armarouge, though, is really interesting to see on a team like this. And then, of course, piloted and sported alongside the Roaring Moon and the Landorus as well. Obviously, Landorus being so popular in these kind of teams, just making use of the rain going up, then being able to hit these 100% accurate Sansis Storms, which is just a devastating move.
Absolutely. Pairing the Landorus with the Kyogre is great, especially into those Terrafire Koraidons that we might see and have definitely seen in this regulation. So it's not a bad idea here. But as you said, the Armarouge is the one that sticks out the most here. Got some very defensive moves with the Wide Guard, with the Will-O-Wisp, but also with the Ally switch here. Could come in very, very handy, especially if it's in a difficult situation. And Jamie's obviously representing the Paldea Palafins this week. As for a fact, Pokemon Diamond was one of the first games that he ever played as a kid, but it was only introduced to the wider gaming sphere when I found a copy of Smash Brothers Brawl by chance. I saw Pikachu on the box art with Mario, Link, and Kirby, who I legit knew nothing about at the time. Great fact from Jamie, who got into Pokemon via Smash Bros. Excellent.
I tell you
we
what,
love that.
This was certainly not rigged or planned, but me as a Smash commentator would suddenly have Smash frosted into my face. We did not plan this with Rich. This is just complete coincidence. But it's incredible to see it there in the very first match of the very first week we have here at UKITT. But I tell you what, I'm super excited to get into this game. I'm really interested to see how both players will pilot a team. The Armarouge is something I'm really curious to see. Like it does stick out on a team like this where sort of rain is so prominent on it, and then you've got a fire type there, which obviously can terastallize into that bug. But it's really interesting to see a supportive sort of Armarouge, not a sort of an offensive one by any means, but having that Wide Guard, the ally switch, Will-O-Wisp. Really, really interesting to see, and I'm very curious to see how it's going to be piloted against Semaphore here.
Absolutely. Obviously, we saw quite a lot of Armarouge back in Regulation H for some of the hard Trick Room teams, but let's see how this is going to work out. We're moving into the first game of the set. We are in game 1. And we're going to see the lead starting off strong. The Kyogre and Rillaboom coming in for Jamie, and then Incin and Terrapagos coming in for Semaphore.
Yeah, I feel like this is a good lead here from Jamie here, actually. Just setting up that Kyogre immediately. Obviously, something that is quite known on sort of, your Koraidons is that they do like to benefit from the sun. They want to go into that Terrafire. But it's interesting to see that actually Semaphore has kept the Koraidon on the back, potentially knowing that the Kyogre is going to come out first and, you want to counter that Koraidon immediately. So the sun is still going to be a threat later on. And certainly Jamie is going to have to watch out for it.
Absolutely. Also, double fake out pressure from both sides here with the Incin and the Rillaboom. So, not sure what we'll see here, but we'll see how this all plays out. And we get the immediate switch in from the Terrapagos into the Koraidon. The weather has changed. Obviously, going for the Origin Pulse, not doing enough damage, though, because of the weather change. And Rillaboom not going for the fake out, going for the U-turn, bringing in the Roaring Moon instead, who gets a Photosynthesis boost. But Incin fires straight back, dropping the attack and special attack of Kyogre to get Brute Bonnet out on the field.
It was such an interesting turn there. Like we saw immediately kind of what we were talking about in the initial lead. We're keeping that Koraidon on our back so that you can bring it forwards, get that weather reset, get rid of the rain, kind of put your own summer. But then it was really interesting to see actually Jamie instead then obviously be able to pilot back, bring in the Roaring Moon, who benefits from the sun, gets that photosynthesis up, now has the speed, didn't need to use the booster energy or anything. And of course, even on Semaphore's side, the Brute Bonnet's out as well. So there's a lot that is just happening in one turn. And kind of both sides have very offensive and supportive threats on their side of the field. And it'd be really interesting to kind of see now how both players actually just navigate around this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's see what goes on here. So Koraidon goes for the Protect here, defending himself. And a Breaking Swipe coming in from Roaring Moon. And the Ice Beam was also targeted into the Koraidon, but it was protected. But the Brute Bonnet manages to get the Spore onto Roaring Moon, sending it to sleep for at least the next turn.
Yeah, that was a huge turn there from Semaphore, actually. Getting that double Protect, getting the Protect to obviously, avoid the double hits from both that Kyogre and the Roaring Moon. Really, really nice to obviously just keep that around, keep it survive a little bit longer. Meanwhile, obviously that Brute Bonnet was just alive and healthy to go for that Spore, put the Roaring Moon. It was probably the biggest offensive threat on the field right now, just to sleep, completely useless for the next few turns, and certainly, put Jane off in a sort of difficult place going forwards. Might have to pilot out that Roaring Moon, might need to sort of consider, keep it around what is going to be the plays here.
Absolutely. The Kyogre as well has got the special attack drop, but is also quite threatened by that Brute Bonnet, so we'll see what happens next. Grassy terrain comes in, it gets a small health boost and the swap in from Brute Bonnet into the Terrapagos, and a fairly defensive turn by Jamie there. The Protect on the Kyogre, but the Roaring Moon's still fast asleep.
Yeah, the trap goes going in here is a scary, scary thing indeed. Obviously, has that potential to go straight for that terror. Obviously, trap goes known as a sort of, fairly notable terror hog. So, probably going to be going for it here. I don't feel like Semaphore would want to obviously go for that terror onto Quaidon, especially when Kyo is just sitting right there. But also correctly guessed from Jainoff's side that go for detect, assuming that Semaphore would go for that close combat there. You want to eliminate kind of the Kyogre because that is still obviously your opposing, weather threat. You don't want the rain to go back up and reset your sun or anything like that. So just going into target, obviously correctly guessing that, getting the protect up, and we move onwards now into turn, see what this Trap Ghost can do. Will it be a Rock Polish or something like that?
The Roaring Moon gets sent straight out, and a close combat onto the Kyogre, but the Kyogre lives on just 1% health. And the Terapagos coming in with the Meteor Beam was originally going for the Roaring Moon, hit the Rillaboom instead, and the Kyogre with the Ice Beam straight into Koraidon, but unfortunately that special attack drop has come into effect because the Ice Beam was not enough to KO the Koraidon. Now, Koraidon obviously normally threatened by an Ice Beam with it being a Dragon type here, and also had a special defense drop, but it wasn't enough from the Kyogre.
Yeah, obviously getting that Ice Beam with Quaidon is huge. You see that amount of damage that was put onto that Pokemon there, barely hanging on. Obviously now -1 in defense and special defense after that close combat as well. Sadly, though, the Trap Ghost was able to get a free hit on, did a fair chunk of damage to Rillaboom, but still keeping it around. But a +1 special attack Trap Ghost is a scary thing indeedly, and I feel like Jainoff is certainly going to have to watch out here.
Absolutely, the Terapagos, as soon as it gets that special attack boost, it is a difficult thing to deal with if you don't have the tools for it. And Instinct comes in, dropping the attack of the Rillaboom, and we get the swap out from the Kyogre into the Zacian. Zacian gets a Terra Starstorm, does about just under half damage there, and a U-turn from the Rillaboom there into the Terapagos, doing small damage, but bringing the Roaring Moon back in, who is still asleep. It still has got its speed boost, though, so it could wake up at any turn now. Obviously, Instin's back on the field. Fake out threat is there. Just depends where it's going to go.
Yeah, this fake out pressure is pretty insane for Jainoff to deal with here. Could go into either target. It's like, do you sort of want to go into that Roaring Moon there, who is obviously going to be, who does have things like Sword Breaking Swipe, or can do a huge amount of damage, or do you go into a Zacian, who has the most kind of offensive potential on the field? So it's going to be really just to see how actually Jainoff does actually kind of predict around that, see what the target will be. Meanwhile, obviously that Trap Ghost still looking so healthy with the grassy terrain being there as well. Obviously, one bit of health damage will reactivate that Terror Shell, put it in at full health, and I mean you need to start chipping down this Trap Ghost at some point.
That should be Jamie's focus, going for that Terapagos. But yep, does get the health boost there from the grassy terrain, takes it up to 99% health there. And the fake out from the Instinct goes into the Zacian, and Roaring Moon is still asleep for yet another turn. And the Terra Starstorm coming in for the Terapagos, hitting the Roaring Moon for about 75% health. That's a lot of damage.
That was a huge amount of damage from that turtle. Even unterred, it can do so much there. And again, still sitting so happily. Obviously, that Zacian, just being hit beforehand is a tough time right now. And yeah, again, you have to wonder what the play will be here for Jainoff. Yeah, really needs to start getting something going here, because that Roaring Moon is not looking too healthy. The Kyogre in the back is not looking too healthy, and the Zacian is slowly getting worn down.
Absolutely. We'll see what happens as the turn plays out. Will the Roaring Moon be able to wake up? Terapagos protects. Roaring Moon still asleep here. Oh, but the play rough from the Zacian hitting the Incineroar, and Incin is gone. That is our first knockout of the game.
Come on, Roaring Moon, you've overslept your alarm. You need to wake up. You need to open your eyes, please. We need to get something going here. Otherwise, it's going to be completely useless for the rest of the game. It's getting more and more chipped down there. The Boot Bonnet is back up, though. Of course, no sun to back up this time, so no defensive advantage there. But, of course, it's still, even without the sun, even without that sort of defense boost, it's still a very bulky Pokemon. And certainly, I feel like, can potentially just go for another sport onto Zacian if needed. We'll have to see what's going to go on here.
Absolutely, the Brute Bonnet does put on some pressure onto the opposite side. A Rage Powder coming in. Roaring Moon finally wakes up and gets the Tailwind set up, only to face, though, the Terra Starstorm from the Terapagos, which takes it out after a very, very long sleep, bringing the Rillaboom back in, obviously putting fake out pressure back on to Jamie's side into Violane there. And the Rillaboom setting back up, putting the grassy terrain back up as well. So a little bit of health coming in for everyone as well. We had the protect from the Zacian, so they're most likely going to attack next turn as well. So we'll have to see what happens there. But all in all, it's looking pretty good for Violane here. Jamie's going to have to do some maneuvering to get around this, I think.
Yeah, I like that. You know, the Roaring Moon literally woke up to do exactly one thing, but the Tailwind being that one thing is definitely useful. The Glassy Glide coming out there from the Rillaboom and a Behemoth Blade. You can see now that Jamie is wanting to go for these big hits into that turtle, finally start trying to wear it down, especially as you can see that, of course, Trapgo's now at full health again.
Absolutely. So it gets the protection from its Terra Shell. So those first couple of hits are not going to do much damage, but we still have the Brute Bonnet on the field. That Rage Powder still plays a massive part, can just redirect all of those moves. Obviously, Rillaboom will not be affected by that, but does possibly have other weaknesses. Could still face a Terra Starstorm coming in from the Terrapagos if it's not careful.
Yeah, I would say going into the next few turns, I mean, this is still all to play for here. With only that Roaring Moon and the Incineroar being down on both sides, we've still got 3 Pokemon on either side to play for. And obviously, the Zacian's still there, sitting quite healthy, but Trapgo's, I feel, is just, it's got a big red target on it right now. It needs to go down, but you've got to be really, really careful of not letting this Brute Bonnet get away with too much either.
Absolutely. So let's see how this turn plays out. And you predicted it. We got the Terra Stella coming in from Terrapagos, clearing the field of the weather and the grassy terrain there. And a player up into the Brute Bonnet. It wasn't enough, but the double up from the Rillaboom as well was enough to take the Brute Bonnet down. And then we get the Terra Starstorm from this Terrastalized Terrapagos, which hits both, does a fair bit of damage onto both Pokemon there. But still, not enough to get the KO on that side.
I still love that turn, though, from Jamie. Just getting rid of that Brute Bonnet so that, you know, the Quaidon is now forced out, sets up that Sun. And, of course, what's in the back? Kyogre can bring that rain in as soon as something goes down. Of course, the downside, and I think that what is going to be interesting for the rest of this game going forward, is that Trapgo's still being there, still being at full health, and, of course, now getting to launch these huge double-target Terra Starstorms at both of these threats there. With that Kyogre not sitting too healthy in the back, it's going to be tough, but there's a chance.
There is a chance indeed. So the Rillaboom automatically swaps out. Kyogre comes in, resetting the weather. The rain is up, and Zacian goes for the protect here. A flame charge into the Zacian. No, that won't do much in the rain. But the Terra Starstorm comes out, and Kyogre is gone. This means that Jamie will be re-bringing back out that Rillaboom. And like you said, it's not looking too healthy over on Jamie's side. We've still got the Terrapagos at 100% health, still protected as well by that Terra Shell. So it's a huge, huge threat to this team. Obviously, we've got the slight fake-out pressure, but will it be enough?
Yeah, this is going to be a really, really interesting turn here. We see a Protect coming out there, probably predicting a fake-out. Actually, we're going to see a double Protect, so it doesn't matter what the fake-out hits, because it's going to do nothing. But it's actually interesting to see that Jamie went for a play rough onto Quaidon. Wants to get rid of it immediately, just so he can, Jamie can force a 2v1 onto his turtle, who I think Jamie knows that obviously you're going to need to hit it twice. You know, that Terra just being active means, of course, this thing's taking so much, you know, it's going to tank so much from both these targets. But obviously, again, with the Trapgo still being their full health against 2 targets, which we really aren't too happy right now, it's going to be a very tough turn to. We'll see how this next turn plays out here for both these players.
Absolutely. So we get the Terra Stella on the Zacian there as well. The Rillaboom goes for the Grassy Glide. Oh, and the Sacred Sword. But Terrapagos lives on just 4 HP. And the Koraidon was able to take care of the Zacian. Terrapagos comes in with that Terra Starstorm and takes down the Rillaboom. And the first match goes to Violane. Excellent game.
Absolutely amazing game 1 for both players there. Of course, I do need to correct myself, actually. You can tell it's been a little bit too warm. Of course, the Terra Shell not being active, obviously, because of the Terra being, obviously did mean that the Terrapagos could take a little bit more. And I think that's kind of what Jamie was banking on. But even despite that, I mean, the fact that this turtle is so tanky really shone through in that game 1 there. And of course, being able to, Violane taking game 1 there with just that huge Terra Starstorm hitting both targets.
Yeah, absolutely. They made all of the right calls as well by making sure that the Terrapagos was able to get back to full health, instating its Terror Shell, so gaining just that extra bit of protection, which helped in the long run. Obviously, it took a Grassy Glide, but then the Sacred Sword as well was not enough to take it down in that final turn, and that was crucial, and Jamie really needed that to get the knockout there, but wasn't enough, and Violane did take the game one. Overall, though, great gameplay from both sides, a lot of defensive maneuvers. The biggest thing, I think, though, was that Roaring Moon being asleep for so long, which I think might have been the downfall for Jamie, because it wasn't able to do the damage it probably could. Obviously, it managed to wake up just at the end to get a Tailwind set up, but it might have been just a little bit too late there.
Yeah, of course, we're going to be going into game two because all of these matches, they are a marathon. They're not a race. We have still got so many more games left to play. So let's hop into game two very shortly. See what changes both of these players can make. See if there's any kind of adaptations that Jamie can make to push forward. Will it be just simply a case of that Roaring Moon waking up sooner rather than later? Will that be enough? We'll just have to wait and see.
Absolutely, and also there's the potential as well for change-ups as well. We haven't yet seen the Perish Trap come in for Violane, so that we could see a completely different game style coming into game two. So let's not make you wait any longer, and let's crack on. Let's see these leads. So Roaring Moon coming in straight away with the Landorus this time, so we do see a change on Jamie's side. And a similar lead to before for Violane in the Incineroar and the Terrapagos. Landorus and Roaring Moon obviously take the Intimidate drop as well, so their attack stats have been lowered.
Yeah, really interesting to actually see that Landorus come out. Yeah, probably means it is going to be supported by that Kyogre again, who feels like it's kind of the Pokemon that will always be throughout these games. You just need it to deal with that Quidon Sun and just turn that off immediately. But I do like to see it there. Obviously, the Terrapagos being out again, it's still got that target painted on its shell there from the previous game. I think Jamie certainly going forwards will know that he needs to take it down quickly because it could just run rampant on the rest of the game.
Absolutely, and the Roaring Moon obviously hoping to do a little bit more damage this turn. It does get the speed boost, but it has been swapped in for Kyogre. Kyogre coming in, setting up that rain. The Landorus goes for the Protect here. Instinct went for the Fake Out, obviously not going to do much. But Terrapagos with the Meteor Beam also targeting the Landorus. The Protect keeps it safe for this turn. But the important thing here, the rain has been set up by Jamie, ready for Kyogre to come in.
Yeah, that was a great turn one there from Jamie, predicting obviously the double target of both the Fake Out and the obviously the attack from the Meteor Beam into it. Really, really nice stuff there. Obviously keeps both targets, keeps the Landorus happy, gets the Kyogre in for free. That rain it's up means we can now see 100% accurate Sandsear Storms as well, which is a very nice thing to have.
Absolutely. With the Sandsear Storms, that is a big threat, especially to the Incineroar here. Could also do a fair bit of damage to the Terrapagos, and 100% accurate in the rain as well. So we're going to have to see how this plays out. And we get the swap in. Oh, and we see the Gothitelle. Terrapagos comes in with the Terastallization, which will get rid of the rain. Oh, but Landorus went for an Earth Power, targeting the Gothitelle there. And Terrapagos with the Terra Starstorm. Oh, and the Ice Beam also into Gothitelle, but Gothitelle hangs on with just 7% health. That was a very offensive turn from Jamie, hoping to knock out the Incineroar there. Did predict a swap in, but the Gothitelle being surprisingly bulky here and has taken that hit very, very well, lives on 7% health. Terrapagos as well took the rain away, so the Sandsear Storm was no longer 100% accurate, but they went for the Earth Power. Would have been a great turn, but Gothitelle managed to survive.
Yeah, what a crazy survival, actually. Formed as Gothitelle there, keeps the Shadow Tag active, has Fake Out as well to hit into Kyogre. Of course, the Earth Power does hit into Terrapagos, does good solid amount of damage, but that Terra Starstorm from a Terra Turtle there is going to hit both targets, bring that Landorus down, bring the Kyogre down quite low as well. Meanwhile, this Gothitelle is still here to play, Lee.
Absolutely. If Gothitelle's here, I think we might know who might be in the pack for Violane here, but we'll have to wait and see. But the Terrapagos, again, doing enough damage. The Landorus has gone. We've had our first knockout of this match. But the Kyogre as well, already under half health as well. So it stands in a very risky position. There is no rain, so its water moves are not going to hit as hard as they normally would when it comes out onto the field. However, the Zacian has joined the field. It gets that attack boost, so it is a big threat, especially into the Terrapagos.
Yeah, and of course, the Gothitelle finally leaves, though. The Incineroar is back in, gets rid of that +1 attack on the Zacian there, so just resets that. And there's a Sacred Sword into the Incineroar, bringing it down to just over half health there. But the Kyogre gets to set up here a little bit, gets that Carmine going, the special attack and special defense boost, making it a little bit more tanky, get us be surviving so much more. Meanwhile, obviously, that Zacian's still happy and healthy to keep this game going. And as you said, Lee, we'll be certainly eyeing up that turtle on the other side of the field.
Absolutely, a great read there by Jamie, going for that Carmine. It was a risky move. He could, they could have had a Terra Starstorm coming in, so correctly predicted that the Protect would come in on the Terrapago side. So it did get that Carmine, like you said. It's now going to be a little bit bulkier. It's probably going to take these hits a lot better. But the Incin is back on the field, dropping the attack of the Zacian, which has now lost its boost, and obviously brings with it that fake out pressure. And we're going to watch that into action. The Zacian goes for the Protect and the double Protect on Jamie's side. Not a smart move there from Jamie. Incin obviously gets that, and the Terrapagos also gets a special attack boost there.
Yeah, I mean, it is really, really exciting and potentially terrifying to see the rock polish actually coming out from the Terrapagos there. We talked about it right from the very beginning in that team preview, the fact that it was there. And now, not only do we have a turtle that hits very hard with that Meteor being +1 boosted to the special attack earlier, but now we got +2 speed as well, Lee. This thing is not only going to be outspeeding a whole lot, but it's going to be hitting very, very hard.
Absolutely, the Terrapagos there is going to be very speedy for the turtle, and Gothitelle comes back in. And we see Zacian, went for the Tellerstellar, but a one-hit KO by the Terrapagos onto the Zacian. Zacian has gone, but Kyogre, again, going for that Carmine, has got even more bulk added to it and got the extra special attack boost as well. So the Gothitelle and the Terrapagos are now staring down a very bulky Kyogre backed up with a Roaring Moon, who can set up a Tailwind, which might put the Terrapagos in some slight trouble.
Yeah, I mean, again, this turtle is just running rampant on this set of games here. Again, the outspeeding the Zacian there that went for the Terrastella is crazy. And obviously being able to take it down in one hit. You're down to just your Roaring Moon, your Kyogre. Your Kyogre did manage to set up as well. So Jamie, certainly got the bulk on his side of the field. But still quite low damage, low health right now, Lee. It's going to be really tough to try and come back from this. But certainly possible if you just believe in your bigger whale here.
Absolutely, but obviously they do now face the risk of that Screamtail being in the back. The fake out was going for the Roaring Moon, but it protects. And Terrapagos with the Terra Starstorm, it doesn't do enough. And Kyogre with the Origin Pulse taking down both Gothitelle and Terrapagos in one go. And now we see the swap of Pokemon here. Incin is back on the field, dropping the attack of both the Roaring Moon and the Kyogre, followed up by the Koraidon, so the weather has changed once more, so Kyogre's water moves are not going to be as affected in this sun.
I mean, again, a crazy turn there. This is why we set up with a Kyogre. This is why, even despite it being so low on its health, you got to keep believing in your restricted legendary. This thing just being able to take down that Terrapagos and the Gothitelle is huge. But of course, it did allow Violate to bring out that Koraidon, put up the sun, and Jamie has no way to turn that off either. Like, that sun is here to stay, so it's going to weaken all the water type moves that Kyogre can throw out here. But Roaring Moon being here, being able to benefit, actually, ironically, from the sun, getting that plus speed there is going to be scary, scary stuff. And I feel like both, parties here have a chance to take it, but I feel the Koraidon is going to be very, very scary.
Absolutely. Both Pokemon down to their last two. And the fake out into the Kyogre. There's the Roaring Moon going for the Tailwind. Kyogre doesn't do much because of the flinch. But the close combat straight into the Roaring Moon. The Koraidon does take that defense and special defense drop. However, the Roaring Moon has gone. We are left with a Kyogre just on 12% health here, facing down both a Koraidon and an Incineroar in the sun. Kyogre, I think, is in a very, very difficult position here.
This is so interesting looking at this board state here. You've got a Kyogre just on 12%, but it is in sun. It's got the the boost to its special attack. It's probably going to have to go for an Origin Pulse here and hope that both targets hit. It might do the damage, but we'll have to see as we go into potentially the final turn here. Well, ironically, we're going to see a Protect, which is quite funny. Going to put down all of my excitement there. But we're going to see it, just for a little bit longer. See if we can stall that sun. See, it's still going to be around for a little bit longer. The Ice Beam comes out. It hits into Koraidon, takes it down. But the knockoff is going to be enough. And Violane is going to take the set here 2-0 in a very, very close game too.
Very, very close indeed. I mean, it was looking fairly strong on Violane's side when they had that Terapagos up at the 2 speed, but that Kyogre coming in so strong with that Origin Pulse, managing to take both Dano and the Gothitelle. Very unusual, though, to see the Gothitelle come along without the Screamtail as backup. I mean, I was fully expecting to see a full Perish Trap at the end, obviously. If that Screamtail was there, that whole game, that last bit, everything would have ended in 3 turns, no matter how many protects you put up, no matter what moves you do. So everything could have come to an end, but they'd got Koraidon in the back, ready to set that Sun up to stop that Kyogre managing to go on the rampage that it wanted to go on so badly.
Yeah, and I think it was so smart at the end. Obviously, I talked about, maybe you'd have to go for the Origin Pulse there, but I actually did like for Jamie being able to go for the Ice Beam there. Just get the confirmed KO onto the Koraidon, and then you just have to pray. You have to hope that maybe Incineroar cannot, take down his Kyogre, because, if that Kyogre survived, I think we would have seen a complete reversal there, where Jamie might have been able to take that game 2, take us to a game 3. But regardless, I mean, Violane played that so perfectly. As you said, the Gothitelle bring actually being really, really useful. So unusual to, as you talked about, to not see it with that Screamtail, but still, I think it was a brilliant bring to immediately trap Jamie on the first few turns. There was absolutely crucial for just kind of completely neutered things like the Landorus, which could have been a huge threat.
Absolutely. I mean, that Gothitelle coming in handy, so it does stop everyone from swapping out. Obviously, it had the fake out pressure as well, which is great. But like we said, surprisingly bulky as well. Managed to take a good couple of hits and survive on a small bit of HP, which proved very handy. It also had that leftover, so it was getting a little bit of health back every time it was on the field, which we also saw from the Kyogre at the end there as well. It was draining just a little bit of health, which is why Jamie, I think, went for the Protect in that end game there, just to try and get a little bit of health back. But yeah, ultimately it wasn't enough. However, I am sad we didn't get to see the Armarouge. I was very much looking forward to seeing it come into play, and we didn't see it.
There's always next time. There's always next time.
There is.
But you know what? If you liked that first set, whoa, let's go to a second one, shall we? I believe we're going to move on to our second one here. I love, I love Jason T. Pocket just being the picture there. That's actually brilliant. We're seeing Oscar here, Swamp coming in. Again, we're seeing the second use of a Koraidon. But this is a really interesting team here. We've got a Koraidon, we've got Calyrex Shadow, we've got the Galarian Wheezing out as well, alongside that Chien Pao with Terrastella, which is exciting, and Ruination, not something you see often on a Chien Pao. Keep that in mind for later. We've got the Walking Wake, and of course, a return of yet another Mushroom. We've got Boot Bonnet out again.
Absolutely. Of a similar team to what I may have been running this week as well, so I am very used to this team. But yeah, the Koraidon with the Cali Shadow is quite a common pairing at the moment, but the Wheezing is the big thing here. Obviously, the neutralizing gas can stop a lot of opponents setting up their weather, but the Koraidon on Oscar's side will be protected by that ability shield, so it will still be able to set up the Sun when others can't. Obviously, you then have the Walking Wake down at the bottom, which would get the Photosynthesis boost, which can do major damage with Hydro Steam in the Sun as well. And obviously, the Brute Bonnet, we saw it in the last game. We're seeing it now as well. Can do huge misdirection with that Rage Powder and become a target for things that maybe don't want it to be the target itself. But the other thing to point out here is on the Cali Shadow, we have the Encore as well. So a big threat there, especially if we have a someone tries to protect or anything in front of that Calyrex, other Calyrex users possibly facing some danger here. Oscar here is representing Los Poplios Hermanos, a team from last year as well. And their fun fact, and this is quite a mouthful, so bear with me as I say this. I got top 64 in Global Challenge 2 with Jolly Terra Ice Choice Band Calyrex Ice. There we go. We got through it in the end.
On paper, I have to say. Jolly Terra Ice Choice Band Calyrex Ice. I would not want to take a Glacial Lance from that, I'll tell you what.
Absolutely, that would hit hard. But top 64, amazing achievement there from Oscar to do that. So let's take a look at their opponent this week, which is Oscar as well. It's the double Oscars. It's an Oscar off, if you will. Double.
No, one Oscar, two Oscars.
Two Oscars.
We're at an award ceremony now.
Absolutely. Oscar representing the Cherry Grove Chien Paos. And Oscar loves all electric and dragon type Pokemon. And they mean it. They have the Miraidon, the electric dragon Pokemon itself. Rocking those choice specs there, going for a hard-hitting moveset. Backed up, though, with that Lunala, with the Trick Room, which can obviously do some major damage, especially into the Koraidon with that Moongeist beam. And also has that wide guard to stop the Calyrex from possibly going on its own rampage. Backed up as well, though, we have the Whimsicott with the Tailwind. We have an Ursaluna. We don't think we've seen one yet on stream today, but also we have our regulars in Incineroar there, but also the Urshifu, which is the Surging Strikes, Close Combat, and Aquajet maneuver there. So a decent team coming in from Oscar here.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the sort of team that has just been doing the rounds recently. Obviously, we saw this kind of team piloted to huge success. Sort of, kind of similar variations of it at NAIC very recently. Obviously, Ursaluna, Miraidon, Lunala, all been very common pairings with each other. That Incineroar being there, and of course, like the Whimsicott backing up that Miraidon, as we've seen sort of many times before across countless tournaments all over the world. And then Urshifu just being that potent threat always with that choice band, a Terra Ghost, really interesting to see. And I feel like, this is going to be a feature match, let me tell you. There can only be one Oscar remaining at the very end of it. So let's hop into it, going into game one here between the two Oscars. Who will be the strongest of them all?
And it's Oscar versus Oscar. Who will the Oscar go to? Thank you, Ron, for that joke. So we will, I think, just for ease, we'll refer to them by their usernames here. So we have Swamp Oscar versus Gatronics Oscar. And we'll see how this plays out. The leads straight out on the field. We have Koraidon setting up that Sun immediately with the Chien-Pao, with the Miraidon, and the Lunala on the opposite side for Gatronics there.
Yeah, it's an interesting pairing actually from both sides. Obviously, Miraidon, Lunala, as I kind of talked about before, very sort of common together these days. Lunala are just sort of being able to offer just so much support with wide guard, various other means, having that electric seed as well to kind of get the defensive boost. But actually, the Koraidon and the Chien-Pao is really scary to see on the other side of the field, setting up that Sun, and of course the Chien-Pao is a very notable counter to Miraidon these days, and seeing a lot of use. As we sort of mentioned before, NAIC, it was number 2 in usage for a lot of the tournament. So really tough, and I feel like a lot of players are starting to consider this once again for their teams. And so I feel like Gatronics is gonna have to watch out here.
Absolutely. So let's see how this turn plays out here. So the immediate swap, the instant comes in, dropping the attack on the Koraidon and the Chien-Pao, which are both physical attackers. And the Ruination, though, going into the Lunala, doing 50% damage with the fire-boosted Sun Flare Blitz straight into the Lunala. And Lunala is gone. We have a knockout straight away in this matchup. That was huge there. Even with the attack drop, the Koraidon had been able to remove Lunala, which is a huge threat for Swamp's team here.
Yeah, I mean, that's just a ludicrous amount of damage being put on there. Getting rid of that Lunala immediately is huge here. And just, I mean, going forward, it's going to be tough to not have that, mystical bat just swirling around, offering support. Of course, the Incineroar coming in here is still really nice for Gatronics, but you've got to watch out. You've lost a big restricted legendary on your side.
Absolutely. Not only that, but they've also lost their wide guard. That was their wide guard user on Gatronics' side. So if Swamp does have that Kali Shadow in the back, my apologies, that will now be a huge threat as it can outpace quite a lot of the opposing team as well. Obviously, the Incin, though, also a huge threat and could do damage. So we'll see how this turn plays out. And the swap in again. Ursaluna comes out this time. Chien-Pao going for the Protect. Also the Koraidon going for the double Protect here. And Miraidon went for the Volt Switch. It won't be able to hit. However, it is now locked into that Volt Switch with those choice specs. But Ursaluna comes in. It has got the Flame Orb. And we've seen this Ursaluna, again, through previous regulations, being able to, once with that Guts ability, is now able to do some heavy damage, especially to the opposing side. However, it doesn't have Trick Room set up, so it will most likely be moving last here.
Yeah, I mean, it was a nice kind of defensive turn from both players, actually. I really like on Gatronics' side, knowing that obviously Swamp would probably predict, a fake out, maybe to a double protect, as we did see. Actually just opting instead to go straight into Ursaluna, bring out this kind of strong, offensive threat here. But even on Swamp side, I mean, going for that double protect, you're stopping all the tags. Obviously, we did see the Bolt Switch come out from Miraidon there. If I hit to Quidon, that would have done a ludicrous amount of damage. Regardless, I would have been able to pivot out Miraidon. So by doing this, you've kept that Electric Dragon just lying around. It's still there. It's going to have to do something. And with that GM power still existing as well, that is a big threat to watch out for on Katronic's side.
Absolutely, it is. But the Miraidon, correctly predicted that. Swaps out, Instinct comes back in, dropping the attack once more. And the Terra Ghost on the Ursaluna, but the Ruination coming in again. And we get a repeat of turn 1. Ruination straight into the collision course. But the Ursaluna goes with the Facade and is able to get rid of the Koraidon. Knockouts left, right, and center here. Koraidon is gone for Swamp. Gatronics lost has lost Incineroar. So it's all going on. It's all going on.
It's all happening, Lee. It's all happening all at once. These Ruination plays have been insane. I think a lot of players have been kind of recently working out that obviously all the Treasure of Ruin Pokemon having Ruination, obviously being able to drop your opponent's your target's health in half is crazy. And obviously, especially on Pokemon like Chi-Yu and Chi-Pao, who are so naturally fast, being able to do this against these threats just means you can then use your Restricted or your other Pokemon just to chip them out. And it's what we're seeing time and time again from Swamp side there. Go for that Ruination, taking down whatever threat is in its face. And now with that Incineroar gone, it exists no more. Cannot drop your attack. You still got that, obviously your threats in the back as well. The Calyrex Shadow being there now is huge. It did go for a Terra Ghost as well. So it means it's going to be taking some heavy hits from Astral Barrage potentially.
Absolutely. It's normally Ursaluna being a normal type would not take any damage from Astral Barrage here, but the Calyrex goes on the defensive, goes for the Protect, and Shenpao goes for the Ice Spinner to get rid of that electric terrain and goes for the Draco Meteor into the Calyrex. It is protected, but the Shenpao dropped down to its Focus Sash from that Ursaluna. Now, that was huge. So the Shenpao living on just 1 HP here, but its attack is down to 0.5, so it didn't do a great deal of damage to Miraidon there. But Miraidon went for the Draco Meteor, was unsuccessful because of the Calyrex protected. So now both Ursaluna and Miraidon are facing some issues with the Calyrex possibly coming in with that Astral Barrage.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just sitting there very, very ominously right now. Just be able to click Astral Barrage if it really wants to, and it probably will as we do get into the next turn here. Of course, we'll have to see how much damage it does. Sucker Punched critical hit is going to take down Miraidon. That's tough. And then the Astral Barrage, of course, is going to seal it up there, taking down that Terra Ghost Ursaluna. And game 1 going to an Oscar.
Surprise! An Oscar won. Who would have thought that was coming? No, Swamp taking game 1 there, played excellently there with that Ruination. That was the huge turning point. Both getting rid of the Incineroar and the Lunala there, both huge threats, I think, especially the Lunala with that Wide Guard being able. If that was on the field while Cali Shadow has that Astral Barrage, Cali Shadow might have been in a bit more of a difficult situation. Yeah. However, Swamp saw the opportunity, got rid of it straight away. No thoughts, just attack. Brutal attack. And again, we saw that later on as well. The Ruination knocking everything down half health to then be able to get those one-hit KOs with the Koraidon. Did lose the Koraidon, obviously, following up that. But with Cali Shadow in the back, Swamp, I think, was sitting pretty there and knew exactly what to do.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be hopping into game 2 here of this best of 3. I really feel like, of course, Gatronics is going to have to watch out for these Ruination plays because they were just devastatingly. They truly were. Being able to just essentially nuke whatever target you wanted through, just Ruinationing it, bring it down to half health, and then using a strong attack and move from whatever Pokemon you really wanted to. And with Swamp's team being so strong as it is offensively, it basically means that you are just losing one time after another. Of course, going into second game here, we do see a slight switch up actually on Swamp side here with that Galarian Wheezing coming out here. And of course, just neutralizing all these abilities. They're gone. They're no more.
Absolutely. The only thing we see is the sun from that Koraidon, which has been protected by the ability shield there. So Koraidon is sitting happy in the sun, whereas Lunala and Miraidon on the other side of the field, Miraidon is missing its electric terrain, which is obviously huge here because that can help Miraidon's power a lot. So that I think Gatronics here will be looking to possibly get rid of that Wheezing as soon as possible so that they're able to get that electric terrain set back up. But the Lunala again, back in first turn, Will it go down just as fast? We'll have to wait and see.
Yes, hopefully this bat is going to stick around a little bit longer. In fact, we're going to force the bat to stick around a little bit longer as it does retreat backwards. But oh god, a terrifying flare blitz coming into Cineroar, dropping it down so much. But you know what does even more damage is a Draco Meteor into that Koraidon there. The play rough actually coming out from the glare and wheezing does a huge amount to this Cineroar, but it's still not enough to take it down, sadly.
Absolutely, the Koraidon there with the flare bits into the Incin, which did about 75% damage. I think it did a huge amount of damage. Followed up with the play rough from the Wheezing, but the Wheezing I don't think is powerful enough to get, wasn't powerful enough. Just to get that final bit of damage on the Incin. So Incin is obviously a fake out threat here. However, Calyrex has now joined the field from Swamp side. Fake out will make no difference to Calyrex. It has no problems. And Miraidon hit that Draco Meteor, which was huge. It has knocked out the Koraidon. However, it's now got a -2 special attack drop, which is going to impact it hugely. So I think Gatronics might be looking to swap out here, possibly bring in something stronger. Possibly the Lunala again to get that wide guard protection from Calyrex. But we'll have to wait and see as it plays out. So we'll see what happens here. So, the Wheezing has swapped out, the Electric Terrain coming back up, and Walking Wake is in, getting the speed boost here. And Incin swaps out again. Ursaluna comes in, and the Astral Barrage from the Calyrex into Miraidon only does about 48% damage. Oh, but the Draco Meteor hitting again at even at -2 special attack manages to do over 75% damage. That is insane. That Miraidon, even with those special attack drops, still managing to do huge damage there.
You know what? I think this dragon might hit a little too hard sometimes. That did so much damage into that Calyrex there, but sadly not enough to actually eliminate it, which I think is what obviously Gatronics wanted to do. But of course, the Ursaluna coming out here on the Gatronics side. Again, like, we were hoping to see the sort of Pokemon do a little bit more than it was able to last time, because it is such a strong threat there. I think if Gatronics kind of keeps it unterrored here, obviously that Calyrex is just going to have to watch out. Really interesting, actually, to see the Walking Weight come out, though. Obviously gets to benefit from that sun, gets the plus speed photosynthesis as well. So it's going to be a really, really scary threat, actually, and Gatronics certainly going to have to watch out for both of their Pokemon there.
Absolutely, and without the swapping as well, Miraidon is locked into that Draco Meteor with those choice specs. So we'll have to see if the Miraidon's going to stick around. Like we said, it's still doing huge amounts of damage here. And the Incineroar comes back out, dropping the attack on the Walking Weight. Oh, the Hydro Steam, though, it takes it, manages to get the KO onto the Incineroar. And Calyrex following it up nicely with the Astral Barrage, takes out the Koraidon and gets its 1.5 special attack boost. There, we now have Lunala and Ursaluna back on the field. Calyrex down just on about 12% health here, but does have the special attack boost and will be faster for the next turn. The Walking Wake as well, with that speed boost, is going to be able to take him, start doing some hits. I think Gatronics here is going to have to go on the defensive.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of one of those plays that I think Gatronics didn't really have many options. You couldn't really bring in the Lunala safely here. We're going to see that Terror come out, though. Good actual use of the Terror to turn off that Ghost weakness. The Ash Barrage is going to come out as well. Obviously, Ursaluna immune, but that Lunala cannot survive it after the boost earlier. The Facade is going to hit into the Walking Wake, though. Take that down, and it's now down to a Galarian Wheezing and a Calyrex with very low health holding a Life Orb versus this Ursaluna. It is truly bare against the world right now.
It really is, but the big thing here that Calyrex having so little health with that Life Orb, it is at danger. Although it's at +2 special attack, Ursaluna is not affected by Astral Barrage here, and Wheezing, we know, is a bit more on the bulky side. It wasn't able to do much damage to the Incin earlier, so I don't know if it's going to be a huge threat to the Ursaluna. So I think the Ursaluna does have a chance here to just start powering through Swamp's team. Calyrex goes for the Protect, playing itself, as does the Wheezing, and Ursaluna went for the Earthquake, hoping to hit both here, and doesn't manage to do so, but the Psychic comes in from the Calyrex. Oh, huge turn, manages to get the one-hit KO thanks to that +2 special attack boost that it got, and Wheezing, the last one on the field, Swamp takes the victory, 2-0. So the Oscar goes to Oscar.
The Oscar goes to Oscar.
The Oscar goes to Oscar.
No, I mean, it was kind of in the back of my mind. I was thinking the entire time, what can this can this Ursaluna survive the Psychic? Because obviously, Cadaveg's not having any sort of choice, so it meant it had the freedom to go for these other moves. And just a +2 Cadaveg is going to hit so hard always. And I mean, that's kind of how it went in the end. Obviously, just being taken down there didn't give much opportunity for Catronics to actually, come back from it. So the 2-0 victory actually going to swamp there, the first Oscar. Maybe not the best Oscar. Yeah, we can't be that.
we can't. No, we'll remain very neutral here. Both Oscars were great. They both played very well.
Match.
Obviously, both of them as well, very experienced players in their own rights, have done very well in real life competitions as well. So it was always going to be a great set here from these two Pokemon. But Swamp did manage to come in and take full advantage. I think the big players here were that Shenpao with that Ruination, being able to knock those Pokemon off so early. And then the Weezing as well, having that neutral grass, being able to kind of keep Miraidon at bay there. Miraidon, though, did do a fair bit of damage, like we said. Still, with -2 special attack, was able to do a fair whack of damage with the Draco Meteor. About 75% damage, I believe it was.
Ludicrous amounts.
Huge amounts of damage. So, there were just attacks coming in all around. And it was just huge plays from both teams. But yeah, excellent work from both Oscars there. So we are about to go into our third and final stream game, and it's our wild card. Sam, would you like to do the honors and tell the audience?
Lee, let me pose you a question. Obviously, last set we saw Chien-Pao pretty devastating, with those Ruination plays, pretty strong Pokemon. So let me pose you a question. What if we banned it? What if we just didn't allow it anymore? What if we went into a format where it could exist no more? This is what we're going into in our next set. It is time to dive into Regulation H here. The H stands for healthy meta because it was a nice break from the double restricted format here. As, of course, we do see the teams coming out there for a wildcard game here. It is Aaron Breloom 3912 here coming out here. Got the Incineroar, the Amoonguss, the Ursaring, the Blood Moon. Love to see that Pokemon there. The Sneasler, the Goldengo, and the Dragonite. Part of the Silicoba Kai. I love that team name, honestly. That's brilliant. And fun fact, of course, from Aaron saying, to qualify for Worlds 2022, I participated in one event and made it. I would love to know what event that actually was.
Absolutely. Aaron is a great player. Has been on the scene for quite a while and plays very strongly as well. But Regulation H, like you said, no legendaries, no restricteds, no paradox Pokemon. Really the big threats here, and we can already see one on Aaron's team, is that Sneasler. Sneasler made huge waves in Regulation H back late last year when Regulation H was going. That Sneasler really came up, and we saw it almost at every regional event, and we can see why. That Diaclaw, the Diaclaw on that Sneasler, is a huge threat to anyone, not necessarily for the amount of damage it can do, but its secondary effects, the risk of poison, the risk of paralysis, the risk of sleep. It is a huge hitter and can do so much damage here. Looking at the rest of Aaron's team as well, the Blood Moon Ursaluna as well, that Blood Moon move, high special attack, can just start sweeping teams here. But some nice Pokemon as well, like you said, to go around it. We have the Amoonguss, which will bring in the Spore and the Rage Powder. Obviously, we've seen a lot of Brute Bonnets for our few games, but it's I was going to say predecessor, but it's not the predecessor, really.
No, it's technically
Bonnet,
the future one, yeah.
Yeah. So the future Brute Bonnet in Amoonguss coming in with that Spore and Rage Powder to be on the more defensive. The Incin as well, always, because Incineroar is everywhere. But also the Goldengo, Terra Water Goldengo with that Life Orb. Obviously, a nasty plot and Make It Rain can do a huge amount of damage as well to its opponents.
Yeah, I mean, you gave me a terrifying mental image there of just like a future form of Amoonguss coming out, and I'm just truly hoping that Game Freak aren't listening. Do not make it happen. We've got 2 mushrooms. That's enough, okay? We've got enough.
We don't want an evolution?
Yeah, no, we're good, honestly. Amoonguss is enough. Amoonguss is fine. But I do, it's interesting to see Reg H coming out here. I mean, I feel like it was always a good sign of a meta where people were saying that, the conversations were going that, people think Sneasler was more dominant than Urshifu, like, a scarier Pokemon Urshifu. I feel like those sort of conversations happening are always a good sign that maybe a meta is, like, fairly healthy and things like that. So let's go into the second team here to see Aaron's opponent. It is, of course, going to be a Liam Westy BGC here with a very, very cool team, actually. Seeing the sort of a rain set team, actually, with that. I've forgotten that Pokemon's name immediately. It is Archaeodon. There we go. Oh,
there
my
we go.
God. The fact that I've not seen this guy in almost an entire format, just forget his name entirely. But we're seeing, obviously, Amoonguss. Once again, we have had a mushroom every single time. We got the Palipper coming out. The Incineroar is back. The Goldengo is also back. But interesting, we are going to see, obviously, the... oh my God, I forgot that Pokemon's name as well. Just devastating.
Basculegion.
Basculegion.
Come on, it's my username. Well, half of my username. I should say. I can't claim full credit.
I've forgotten these Pokemon's names. I know these guys. I love these guys. They're great.
It's been a long time since Regulation H. You're completely forgiven. It's all good. But it's also the heat as well. Obviously, the heat, not just from the temperature, but from the amazing matches we have seen so far. But yeah, the Basculegion here is the big one. Setting up the rain with the Pelipper. With that Swift Swim ability, Basculegion is fast. And it deals so much damage. And obviously, being a ghost type can threaten the Goldengo if Goldengo doesn't use its terror attacks. It doesn't terrestrialize, sorry. But also the Archaeodon as well. Again, another huge staple, from ironically a staple remover. Huge staple in Regulation H. We're seeing quite a lot because it is tanky. It can take some hits, but also in the rain, that Electro Shot can one hit. It doesn't need to have it set up. So again, has the potential to do a lot of damage here. Liam is representing Zero Gate Zoroarks. Their fun fact, managed to get on stream before Amrit. There we go. Sorry, Amrit. I was going to say, it's not us dissing you. We are merely just passing the message along. So I'm sure you'll get on stream soon enough, though. But let's go into these matches. Regulation H here. And I believe, if I'm correct, we're going to be seeing these on cart, so we're going to get some actual gameplay action here, which
one
is
more surprise for the ladies and gentlemen at home.
Absolutely. So Aaron versus Liam, let's see how this plays out.
Okay, so we're going to go into our first turn here. Oh, we get to see the shiny bridge as well. That makes me very happy. And a shiny mushroom as well. You know what? This is great. We love to see a shiny Pokemon being seen here. But, of course, we've got the leads of the Archaeodon and the Incineroar here with the Goldengo and the Amoonguss on Aaron's side there. Going to be very, very interesting. Sorry, on Liam's side, my apologies. Be seeing to see what both these targets are for. Obviously, the fake out kind of is still there as pressure. But you've got to watch out for the Archaeodon as well. With that, it's just stamina. It can get very quickly out of hand.
Absolutely. But the Goldengo, obviously, is going to be very, very fast here. It's not threatened by the fake out by Incineroar. However, Incineroar being a dark type as well does have some potential to threaten this Incin here. The Goldengo, my apologies. And we'll see what happens. So we're going with the Rage Powder from the Amoonguss, going to draw all the attention from its opponents. While Goldengo sets up a nasty plot, it's going to get that special attack boost, which it so helpful for it. And we get the Flash Cannon into the Amoonguss. That does just under half health damage. But the Flare Blitz was predicted the Rage Powder from the Amoonguss there. Gets the Flare Blitz, Incin doing huge damage, and Amoonguss has already been KO'd.
Yeah, I mean, that Incineroar just being there it's just kind of a devastating Pokemon to see. Obviously, like being able to hit either Goldengo or Amoonguss fairly, fairly hard. But of course, this did give opportunity for that Goldengo to set up a nasty plot, which is a scary thing to see here. And not only that, but we actually see the Ursaluna Blood Moon come out as well. So now that Incineroar and that Archaeodon are going to be quaking in their boots because neither of these targets want to see that Pokemon.
Absolutely. The Ursaluna is a huge threat here. But the Goldengo with the +2 special attack, although the Make It Rain might not do some damage, obviously, we know that Goldengo has Shadow Ball on it as well, so it can still do a fair bit of damage, especially at +2 attack. Using Shadow Ball as well will not make the attack drop. But we see the swap out. Liam gets rid of the Archaeodon and instead brings in the Pelipper, setting up the rain nicely here, which I believe is also got a Focus Sash. So as it takes some damage, we know that it will survive at least one hit. And we see Aaron, though, on this side, going for the Terrestrialization onto the Goldengo, and it's Terra Water. Great if it had a Terra Blast move, maybe. But going on the defensive here, it is Terra Water. We'll see what happens. Ursaluna with the Vacuum Wave onto the Pelipper, breaking its focus sash, and Goldengo with the Shadow Ball going also into the Pelipper. Will it be enough?
Oh
And
my
it is.
God.
Pelipper has gone as well.
It never got a chance to do anything. The poor bird is gone. And that is devastating to lose that Pokemon. It was, of course, your chance of, like, obviously having the flying type meant that you were going to dodge these ground type moves from the Ursaluna, which were, going to be huge into not only Incineroar, but also into the Archudon here. We're actually going to see the Basculegion come out. Of course, the one good thing of Pelipper coming in, despite the fact that it died immediately, is that it got to set up that rain, which has allowed this Basculegion to get very, very fast. And now, of course, we know that Liam is going to be watching out for that one.
Absolutely. The Basculegion plays is a huge threat now with the rain set up, as it's going to be a lot faster than almost every Pokemon on the field here. But also, Incineroar did use a knockoff onto Goldengo. Goldengo went down over half from one knockoff. So that Incin still posing a threat as well, could still get rid of the Goldengo here. However, the Goldengo protects. It will be safe at least for this turn, and the Ursaluna went... will not move first, sorry, the Basculegion went for the Wave Crash. Goldengo has protected itself, and Incineroar goes for the Parting Shot, will drop the attack and special attack of that Ursaluna, and will go back to Liam, and we'll see who it brings out. But that Basculegion is going to be a huge threat for both of these Pokemon here.
And the Archudon is going to come out here. Of course, going to also sort of benefit from this rain as well. But it's the Blood Moon there. Such a cool animation to see. Going to hit into that Basculegion, do a good amount of damage. Not enough to take it down here, which means this Basculegion is still going to be a very scary threat, actually, for Aaron to face. Obviously, that Goldengo at half health as well. Still just kicking around, but certainly not looking as healthy as it once was.
Absolutely. I think getting the special attack drop from that Parting Shot really helped there. Basculegion was able to survive the Blood Moon. But Archaludon here in a really good position because its Electro Shot can start setting up. And with the rain, it only needs one shot. But also, it now gets the stamina boost. So it's going to get a nice defense boost there. And the Wave Crash into the Ursaluna, it is super effective. And the Ursaluna has been knocked out as well. We always knew that was possible here. The Basculegion, though, does take some recoil, which means Goldengo can set up, but it goes for the Shadow Ball, and it targets the Archaludon. Ooh, and Archaludon there takes about going down to about 25% health, but the Archaludon, as we said, has now got the ability to get set up with that Electro Shock. The Goldengo is now Terra Water. It's going to be super effective. I think this might be the end of Goldengo as well.
Yeah, that Goldengo is certainly not going to survive that big hit there. And that is a devastating turn for Aaron there, losing both the Ursaluna and the Goldengo here. Meanwhile, you're still facing down this Basculegion, this Archudon. You've only got Dragonite left, which is a great Pokemon. But is it enough to take down these two powerhouses here?
Yeah, we have to remember as well that Incineroar still lives in the back for Liam, but Basculegion and Archaludon both on very low health. But the Dragonite here, completely healthy, has potential, but still the rain. That Basculegion still plays a huge, huge part here. It's still going to potentially be a huge threat. And we could be seeing, or at least coming towards the end of this first set.
Of course, we're going into and we are going to see that switch out of the Basculegion. We're going to be going into that Incineroar here. It just makes sense to do. Get that Intimidate drop onto the Dragonite there. Lower its attack. Just start neutering it as much as you can. The Scale Shot is going to hit into Archudon. But of course, every time you hit this bridge, it only gets more buff. The defensive boosts are racking up here as stamina keeps activating every time the Dragonite hits it. You can see it doing less and less damage every single time.
Absolutely. Also, Dragonite was suffering from that attack drop as well. So
yeah,
that Archaludon taking those hits so well. And Dragonite gets the defense fall, but the speed rise there from that Scale Shot, but a Draco Meteor. And I think this one is all over, but it's not. Dragonite lives on 8 HP. That is one bulky Dragonite there.
Yeah, I mean, we are going to see the potential for coming out here. I haven't actually clicked, but I think certainly Aaron is considering it because, of course, you do have you've just got too many threats to face here with only a 8 HP Dragonite. It's just really, it's too tough for it to face down here. And Liam is going to take away that first game here. So really, really nice stuff there. I mean, just we saw like really kind of fairly dominant turn one, actually, with that Goldengo setting up a nasty plot there. It looked like he was going to be doing so much. I mean, the Ursaluna then coming in as well, being this huge ground threat to two Pokemon that really didn't want to take either sort of ground moves. And even being able to take down things like the Pelipper was just absolutely massive there. But we saw, Lee, just how devastating it is, just having that rain there, just being able to set up your Archudon, your Basculegion, getting those two so fast, so powerful. Is just absolutely devastating. Obviously, things like the Electro Shot being able to activate immediately as well was just a final nail in the coffin, really, as Liam was obviously able to take that first game.
Absolutely, yeah. That Pelipper, like you said, wasn't able to do much on the field. However, it did its job. It was there to set up the rain, and set up the rain it did. Basculegion being able then to come in, being able to sweep through Aaron's team there, as well as the Archaludon being able to get those one-shot Electro Shots, as well as those stamina boosts from the scale shots there, taking less and less damage. On top of its Assault Vest, so it was already taking a lot less damage than planned. But it was a great read from Liam turn one by using the Flare Blitz from the Incineroar, taking down that Amoonga straight off as well. So automatically, Aaron had lost that Spore pressure and that Rage Powder pressure that it might have faced. So Liam there cleaning up game one, and we'll have to see what happens when it comes to game two, which we're going to get into right now.
Yeah, here we go. This game two here, it really still is all to play for. I'm really excited to see actually what kind of changes Aaron can make, and of course, vice versa, what sort of changes Liam will make. We're already seeing actually different setup, and I mean, I do not blame this lead from Liam at all. We saw how devastating rain is. We talked about it in length about how good setting up that weather was. So we're just going to do it immediately. We're just going to get it right out there. We're not going to even worry about anything else. We're going to get that Basculegion, who was so potent before. Meanwhile, on Aaron's side, we're actually going to see that Dragonite come out, first of all, right next to that Goldengo, who we did see there as well, who, again, sort of, was able to be a fairly offensive threat. I have to see what it can actually do into both these targets here.
Absolutely. Obviously, Pelipper, we know, has that focus. Sasha will be able to take at least one hit here before it is knocked out. But that Basculegion, with that rain set up, that Swift Swim is huge pressure going into Aaron. So we'll have to see if any of Aaron's Pokemon to keep. But the Pelipper automatically gets swapped out. And Liam, automatic bringing in the Archaludon, again, is going to get a nice boost from this rain with that Electro Shot. And we're going to see a Terra over on Aaron's side. So Aaron going for the Terra once again on Goldengo, making it Terra Water, gets the defense from the possible Basculegion attacks here. However, with that Archaludon and the Electro Shot, has a potential to face some damage later on. But even with the Terra Water, the Wave Crash from Basculegion there does huge damage, around 75%. But Goldengo here is returning the favor and gets a KO on the Basculegion. The Basculegion obviously taking some recall damage from the Wave Crash there, and is now off the field altogether. It is out. It is gone.
Yeah, I mean, you just saw how essential that Terror was, really, to live that Wave Crash there. It allowed Aaron to get that KO on to the Basculegion, which is, absolutely huge. But of course, we are seeing the Scale Shot coming out into Archaludon, who got swapped in, and just getting a huge stamina boost for its troubles. Of course, this does, as we saw before, benefit Dragonite a little bit. Getting that speed boost is quite nice, despite the fact you do lose the defense. So, it works out for both parties here a little bit. But we'll have to see kind of how it does progress as for the rest of the game now. Obviously, that Dragonite being speedy, that Goldengo still being around as well.
Absolutely. And we see Insync come on the field now, managing to drop the attack on both Dragonite and Goldengo here. But like you said, the defense boost there, very nice on Archaludon. It's going to be able to take some huge hits. However, Goldengo is still on the field. It has taken physical defense boost, but its special defense still remains the same. So we'll have to see if it's going to be at all effective in this next turn. However, the fake out pressure comes in from the instant, obviously, with Goldengo now terrored. That is now at risk as well of taking that fake out and potentially being flinched for this turn. And we'll have to see how Aaron is able to counter this here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, that Goldengo is really just sticking out there. The fact that it can now get hit by that fake out. And it's exactly what Aaron sees, going for that protect there, just to potentially stop anything going on there. But we're actually going to see a little bit of tech in play here. The Dragonite with the Haze is going to reset all the boost on to that Archaludon. So all the defensive buffs it got are gone. They're completely removed. But of course, even despite that, the Archudon still exists, gets that Electro shot there, is going to be targeting down that Dragonite. But thankfully, Dragonite is a lovely buff dragon and can certainly survive, even being hit twice there, but does lose the loaded dice to its trouble there.
Absolutely, that Dragonite surprisingly bulky, managing to take both hits there from the Archaludon and the Incineroar. That knockoff doing huge damage though, taking it down to about 25% health. And the Archaludon did lose its defense boost, but it's gonna get a Shadow Ball, which again takes it down to about 25% health, and it gets yet another defense boost. But the Life Orb will take some of the HP off of Goldengo here. And Dragonite, once again, going for the scale shot here, just trying to chip away at this Archaludon, slowly knock it down to try and get rid of it. However, each time it gets, without the loaded dice as well, will only hit twice. Dragonite, once again, loses some of its defense, but will gain its speed. And we're going to see another Electro shot here coming in from Archaludon. Who is the target, though? Is it going to be Goldengo, or is it going to be Dragonite?
And all the meanwhile, of course, this Archudon is just stacking on these special attack boosts. It does go into the Goldengo here, which is going to take down that Pokemon. Probably the sort of scariest way for Liam to face right now, because as you talked about before, this Archudon is getting defensive boosts. It's not getting special defense boosts. So we're actually going to see the Incineroar as well go for that parting shot. Just new to this Dragonite even more. So even, just it had the attack drop before. Now it's lost even more. It's not going to be hitting very, very hard. Meanwhile, this Archudon, despite being low health, is just terrifying right now to face.
Absolutely. And Pelipper's coming back in here. Obviously, the rain is already set up still, so not doing that. However, as we've mentioned before, Pelipper got that Focus Sash. It's going to be able to take at least one hit here. The Dragonite, though, not looking very healthy, but the Ursaluna has some potential here to do a lot of damage to Liam's team. Ursaluna is nice and fresh, but can also deal some great damage out. And we're going to see how this plays out here as the game goes on. The rain, however, still going to work in Liam's favor here with that Electro shot. And like you said, the Archaludon getting those special attack boosts, which is going to be huge, especially towards the end of game here.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're sort of Aaron there, you're quite happy to see that the Basque Legion is gone, because it did just allow this Ursaluna to come in here and be even scarier in front of all these Pokemon. And of course, Dragonite actually being able to get that tailwind up is going to put speed advantage on Aaron's side. As we do see the Ursaluna go for the Blood Moon there, it's going to go straight to Archudon, take that Pokemon down, remove that huge threat on the field. Of course, the Pelipper is still alive and well, but you want to get rid of this big target like Archudon. It was getting too many special defense, special attack boosts. It was obviously really, really bulky. Ooh. The Ursaluna living the Weather Ball from the Pelipper is massive as well. The Incineroar are going to come in here next for Liam's side there. Put the attack down on that Dragonite even more. But Ursaluna, meanwhile, does not care.
Yeah, Liam is down to his final two Pokemon. However, that we know that the Pelipper has the Focus Sash, so it's going to take at least one hit. The Incin comes in. We've now got the Fake Out Pressure, has dropped the attack on the Dragonite once more. And that Weather Ball doing huge damage to Ursaluna, not enough to knock it off. It lived on about 21 HP. But here comes the threat. It is the Amoonguss, which can obviously add in some sleep potential here, as well as Hat Rage Powder. And the Fake Out going into the Amoonguss, obviously nothing going to happen. But Pelipper setting up that Tailwind as well. So we now know that Liam's going to, at least for a little bit, is going to be moving first. However, the rain is gone. The rain has finally stopped. So I don't think... the Weather Balls here from Pelipper, no longer a threat, and possibly, without the rain, is going to have trouble hitting those hurricanes as well.
It really is feeling quite breezy in here, let me tell you. As of course, they're both tailwinds being on both sides, but of course it does put it in advantage of Liam here. Obviously having a really fast like Pelipper now. Going to be going for that Terra Stella, actually. Just giving a little bit of an offensive boost to all of your moves at least once. But a Scale Shot going to come in here. It's not doing all that much, but it does break the Focus Sash on a Pelipper, which could come in handy later. I'm really curious to see actually what this Pelipper will be going for. Actually, will it hit the Dragonite to get that threat off the field? Would it be going into the Amoonguss? We're going to see the Hurricane here, obviously boosted by Telstar. It is a Hurricane into the Amoonguss, which is going to take it down. That Mushroom is gone, is eliminated from the field. That is a really, really scary threat to take down immediately. Huge play from Liam.
Absolutely huge play here. And the knockoff as well. So the Dragonite has also gone. So Aaron losing two of his Pokemon there. The Pelipper coming in with that Hurricane, obviously not 100% accurate without the rain, so was very fortunate to get that hit on the Amoonguss, which got a one-hit KO. We have the Ursaluna now, but Pelipper and Instant are still on the field. We'd see how this plays out, but we're going to get a Weather Ball anyway from the Pelipper into the Ursaluna, and it is over. Liam wins the set 2-0, taking that final match thanks to that Pelipper.
Yeah, I mean, at the end there, of course, there was just sadly nothing that Aaron could do. Of course, the tailwind going up on Liam's side was just huge. Obviously, putting that speed advantage back on to side of Liam. Just absolutely massive, huge play there from Liam to go for that, despite, kind of seeing the tailwind before. Really, really nice. But, I mean, honestly, incredibly played from both sides. I think that game 2 especially was really, really nice from Aaron as well, actually. Just, went for a lot of strong plays. I genuinely thought quite a few times that this Ursaluna was just going to sweep through the rest of the team, and it was just brilliantly navigated around by Liam to just avoid that entirely. Going for the Hurricane, praying, hoping that it missed despite the rain going down, getting rid of that Amoonguss, absolutely big, because I feel like if that Amoonguss had survived, it could have gone on a real rampage, just being able to put things to sleep, disrupting just everything on Liam's side. So really, really good to just take down. But, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a wild ride. But we have brought us to the very end here. We've had all 3 of our matches, which I think brings us to the end of week 1. It's been a thrilling adventure as we've gone through all these 3 matches. Been really, really exciting today, obviously, to see not only Sword and Shield in the first half, but obviously Red Cage in the second half. And just really, really fun time, honestly.
Yeah, again, huge congratulations to all the players who have played this week. Whether it doesn't, this is worth repeating, obviously, UKITT here is a fun and friendly tournament. It's for us as a community to not only get together to learn and strive off one another, but to also become better and grow as a community as well. And that's the whole point. And everyone has done so well this week. It doesn't matter if you won or you lost. The whole point is that you're growing this community and that we're keeping VGC alive in the UK. Not that it's having any issues at the minute, but it's good to know that we have, so many potential players coming through. And UKITT is a great place to start as well. So many players got their start because of UKITT. And week 1 has been fantastic. I think everyone's played amazing. Everyone on stream as well. We've seen some absolutely amazing games today. Huge plays coming in, like you said. Great to see throwback to Sword and Shield as well. Getting to see some of those Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokemon was a particular thrill, especially the Gigantamax Venusaur, who I have a particular love for with its bangs. But also throwing back to Regulation H as well, which was huge. Congratulations again to everyone on their matches. And we hope you look forward to the next week of games. There's still a long way to go. This is only week 1. There's a long way to go before we start narrowing things down, heading towards the finals. But I'm looking forward to it. How about you?
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. And of course, it's really nice to just see a project like this come back. So, obviously, huge love to Rich and Ron to bring back. UKITT is here, and there's so much more left to be played. This was week 1, ladies and gentlemen, as we talked about. The next stream will be on the 29th of June. So that is next week on Sunday. Coincidentally, also my birthday. So I will expect you all to say happy birthday in the chat. Just make sure you happy birthday smart in advance. Thank you. Oh, thanks.
Happy birthday. We're just having random producers in our ears telling us happy birthday as well.
Yes.
But absolutely, next stream on the 29th of June at 6 p.m. on this very here channel. So do drop a follow if you haven't already. And week 2 of battles will begin on Tuesday, the 24th of June. That's just a couple of days away. So got some exciting things coming up. Again, good luck to everyone who's going to be playing in week 2. Whether, again, doesn't matter if you're playing, doesn't matter if you're benched. Just the whole point is the community. So,
learn
get to know your
other.
teams and learn. This is what we're here for. And it's going to be great. But yes, also, oh my God, my microphone fell off.
We've got the entire stream without any kind of production or audio errors.
This is not a UKITT problem. This is a me problem. So I look like I don't know what just happened. I love how we've managed to get to the end of the stream, and then my microphone is like, I've had enough now. You need to stop talking.
I will say, I imagine the chat probably heard it. My cat has been outside my door yelling for almost the entire stream, and I've just had to ignore him. I just kept looking over, just going, be quiet, just shut up for a moment. He is loved, don't worry. He's he wants attention or food, one or the other. He is fine. Don't he?
Yes, but these are not UKIT problems, so please don't put in any complaints. These are just personal problems that we're apparently having right at the end of game. So please send Rich and Ron some love for setting everything up. But yes, again, thank you everyone for watching. We hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you've had a fantastic time. We certainly have. And we look forward to doing it all again. Thank you as well, Sam, for hosting with me today. And a big thank you as well to Whammy and Alex as well earlier on for their casting. Some great... Adam, sorry, not Alex. My apologies.
I was about to catch you, but yeah.
It's because I said Whammy, and Whammy is Alex. That's why. There's so many A's going around everywhere. But yes, thank you everyone for joining us. We hope to see you again next week on the 29th at 6 o'clock when we are back with more games. Until then, happy UKIT. Good luck for this week. We wish you all the best and have a wonderful evening. Good night, everyone.
Thank you all. Have a good one.